first selection in the 2008 Collegiate Draft. The Boston Cannons select.
Oh, Rabel, the MVP. Rabel winds, fires, and scores.
Max Seaball, midfield, Cornell.
Top to give out twos. It's a two-long-range two-pointer for Max Seaball.
Ed Brody, attack.
Jumper over the top and scores. The slam dunk from Ned Brody, and he's got the hat trick.
Crowley to the foot. One-hander and scores. One-hands it. Highlight reel. Mark Matthews showing off.
Crossing, Stanwyck, feet in front. Scores!
Over the shoulder score. Steele Stanwyck. We're in downtown Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, for the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, broadcasting live from the Liberty Ballroom at the Marriott Downtown Philly. Fans are piling in, ready to see the new crop of MLL stars drafted tonight. I'm Evan Washburn, joined by longtime MLL and collegiate analyst Quint Kesnick. We're with you for the next 2.5 hours, folks. And remember, this is an 8-round, 64-pick draft. Players have not told teams that they will play for them this summer. So in theory, teams are drafting their rights in hopes that they will play for them. It's a unique aspect of this draft, Quint, and that's because obviously the draft's taking place here in January. The collegiate season's about a month away. So as we look at this talent pool, how would you describe this draft?
This is an excellent senior class this year in college lacrosse. If you go back last year, think about the teams that appeared in championship weekend. Loyola winning the championship. They got a lot of seniors back this year. Maryland coming in second, losing in the finals. They have a strong senior class. Notre Dame is back with a bunch. Duke returns a handful of guys who will get drafted. Johns Hopkins has an exceptional senior class, as does Cornell. So as an overall group, when I look at it, I think there's about 50 guys who will seriously challenge for roster spots in the league. And as we know, round 7 and round 8, when you get into picks 50 and 60, there are always diamonds. There are always gems out there that step up and surprise us. So tonight's going to be an awesome night for these pro teams because they'll get a lot better, and a great night if you were one of these athletes who gets selected.
Well, you couldn't be more correct about those late-round picks. Our last 2 rookies of the year have come from those late rounds. Jeremy Boltis, I think, was the last pick of the draft. But when you talk about the top-tier guys, your guys that you think can come in day one and be difference makers, your top 10 available players for this draft are who? Yeah,
I think all talk starts with Peter Baum of Colgate, the Tuareton winner last year, 97 points. Jesse Bernhardt, long stick defensive midfielder from Maryland, great speed, terrific on the ground, tenacious cover guy, intangibles, leadership, everything you want to see. Tucker Durkin, a first-team All-American for Johns Hopkins, nation's best defender last year. I thought he stepped his game up last year in terms of ground balls and just being more active when the ball's in the air, showed better foot speed. Marcus Holman, tons and tons of points for North Carolina. He'll be the senior linchpin for a Tar Heels team surrounded by youth. Holman, great productivity. I love his energy and I love his leadership. Chris LaPierre, beast, defensive midfielder, king of ground balls. Casey Carroll, an interesting story. Last time we saw him was back in 2007, playing for Duke University. He's been an Army Ranger. He's now 27 or 28 years old. He's born in 1984. He's a former first-team All-American. He's eligible. Brian McGill, terrific year last year for Syracuse defense. Garrett Thule, Scott Ratliff, playmaker from Loyola, and then Cam Flint, the righty, real strong midfielder from Denver. These are some guys that I expect to see go in the first 2 rounds.
Should be interesting to see how it all shakes out, but now let's throw it to the master of ceremonies, the man in charge, Commissioner Dave Gross, to introduce us all to the draft.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 2013 Major League Lacrosse Collegiate Draft. Tonight, the top 64 college seniors will be selected to join Major League Lacrosse. The draft tonight consists of 8 rounds. In the first round, teams will have 5 minutes to make their selection. In rounds 2 through 5, the teams will have 3 minutes to make their choice. And in rounds 6 through 8, teams will only have 2 minutes to make their pick. Before we begin the draft, I am very pleased to announce that Major League Lacrosse will be holding its championship weekend in 2013 right here in the city of brotherly love at PPL Park, August 24th and 25th. Please come and join us here in Philadelphia as we crown our 2013 champion. It wouldn't be a draft if we didn't have trades right before. We have 2 trades to announce. In the first trade, the Rochester Rattlers trade Jay Card to the Chesapeake Bayhawks for the 64th selection in the 2013 MLL College Draft. In our second trade, the Hamilton Nationals trade midfielder David Earl and long stick midfielder Stephen Waldeck to the New York Lizards for the 5th overall pick in the 2013 MLL College Draft. With that said, the Ohio Machine is now on the clock.
Well, one of the most fun parts about this draft, in my mind, maybe even more than the player selected, is we always have a big trade. Last year it was Max Seabald from Denver going to now what is New York, Quint. We got to get used to that. It's New York Lizards. But break this one down for us. David Earl, 27 points last season. Stephen Waldeck go to New York for that 5th overall pick.
This is a home run trade for the New York Lizards, in my estimation. I mean, David Earl, if he was in this draft, he'd be a first-round draft pick. You throw in a guy like Steve Waldeck, a ground ball machine out of Stony Brook. This is a huge positive trade for the New York Lizards, who all of a sudden have now stockpiled a pretty good lineup. Keep in mind, Rob Pennell was taken last year. They still own his rights. This is a big move. They got 3 really talented long stick defensive midfielders. Advantage New York, and I like the Bayhawks pickup of Jay Card for number 64.
Last pick in the draft, and you get a player like Jay Card, who we all think can be productive in this league. All right, let's move to the number 1 pick. Ohio's on the clock. We've discussed Peter Baum. He is a electrifying talent. Will he go number 1 to Ohio?
I think if you're Ohio, you have to take him, or maybe shop the pick at this stage to see if anyone's interested in bumping up. Baum tore it up last year. I believe he can play attack. I believe he can play midfield in Major League Lacrosse, and ultimately maybe a better midfielder in this league than an attackman. But really impressed with his foot speed, his shooting, his dodging ability, the intangibles off the field. If you're Ohio, you must take him right now.
All right, well, the commissioner, Dave Gross, has stepped to the podium. Let's see what Ohio's done with the number 1 overall pick.
In the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Ohio Machine select Peter Baum, attack, Colgate. The Hamilton Nationals are now on the clock.
Tewaaraton winner, Enters Award winner, 5.39 points a game when defenses were single-mindedly geared to stopping him. And a big year for Colgate, beating UMass in the first round of the playoffs last year to advance to the quarterfinals. 49 points as a sophomore, almost doubled his production last year. When I met him in person, he's from Portland, Oregon, which I think is noteworthy. Another example of the way the game is growing. When seeing him on tape, I wasn't convinced how big he was. Meeting him in person, he's listed at 6'1", 195. Definitely a 6-foot type player. My concern in this league was his size, but after meeting him in person last year during the tournament, he's a legit 6 foot and flies.
Well, you can't discuss Ohio without mentioning Steele Stanwyck. How does Peter Baum fit in with Stanwyck? Because the casual fan might say, now you've got 2 attackmen that dominate the ball. How's that going to work?
It could work fine. I mean, these 2 guys, I see no reason why they wouldn't form a really good 1-2 punch if, in fact, Baum does play attack. Ohio 2-12 last year. Early in the season, I was pretty critical of them. I didn't think that they were going to win a game all season long. I thought in the second half of the year they played better. They made some trades. Off-season, they picked up Roy Lang. They picked up Kyle Matisse. Joe Cummings was a late-season acquisition. They have gotten a lot better since the midpoint of last year, the Ohio Machine.
Well, a guy that knows Peter Baum very well is his head coach at Colgate, Mike Murphy. We caught up with him earlier in the year to get his thoughts on the electrifying attackman.
Peter's an outstanding athlete. You can see that on television. But I think the intangibles for Peter, his leadership style, his leadership ability. Here's a guy that was a unanimous decision for captain. It's just, get on my back. I'm going to lead from the front. And I think that's what separates Pete, from being good to being great. He's a great student of the game. He spends, when he's not in school, he'll come down and spend, an hour or so watching film with Mike Abbott, my assistant coach, and Joe Starsia, just watching film just because he wants to. It's not anything that we ask him to do. He just wants to do it. He just loves the game. He's for lack of a better term, he's a lax rat.
Well, you can just hear the pride oozing out of head coach Mike Murphy when he talks about his star attackman. And up now, Hamilton Nationals. They have 11 picks tonight folks, and they've made their decision at number 2. Up to the podium, and Dave Gross.
With the second overall selection in the 2013 MLL Draft, the Hamilton Nationals select Chris LaPierre, midfield, Virginia. The Charlotte Hounds are now on the clock.
Wow, Quint, this was the big surprise and big question heading into tonight. What would Hamilton do at number 2? Why do you think they go Chris LaPierre?
Well, I just think from an overall, when you talk about an overall athlete, a guy who can change a game with his ability on the ground, scooping up loose balls, it's Chris LaPierre. Medford, New Jersey, tremendous high school football player, Virginia captain. And you look at what he has done on the ground. 92 ground balls in 2011, 63 ground balls last year. 2 plays that stand out to me. In the playoffs against Princeton, that 45-yard pass he threw to Steele Stanwyck, picking up the assist, and then blocking Princeton's final shot attempt with his chest tells you all you need to know about LaPierre. Shocker, 6'2", 220. He's the heart and soul of this Virginia team. According to Terry Foy of Inside Lacrosse, he's lost 15 pounds this year, trying to gear up kind of to the new rules. You're going to see Chris play a lot in transition this year, and he thinks he has to get in better and better shape to be able to play hard for 60 minutes, D to O.
Well, you mentioned him getting in better shape in the transition because of the new rules. I have to ask, what's his offensive skill set in your mind? Because that's a big product of being a successful midfielder in this league, and I'm guessing they're going to want him to play a lot of offense.
Yeah, well, his role is going to be face-off, wing control, obviously going to play some defense, and then as a transitional offensive midfielder, almost like a guy like Jovan Miller for Charlotte, a goal a game is a fair goal for a guy like that. 1 assist or 2-point game, because you're going to carry up in odd man situations, whether it's 4-on-3s or 5-on-4s, and you're going to get some offensive reps. LaPierre has got to be respected as an alley dodger when he carries the ball in on a 4-on-4, a 5-on-4, and he has the skill set. While I don't see him as a 6-on-6 midfielder in this league, I do believe he can get a point or 2 per game in transition off the wings of faceoffs and from defense to offense.
Chris LaPierre is the number 2 pick. We now look ahead to Charlotte. 5-9 last season, first season in the league. We saw improvements at the tail end of the year. They brought in a lot of experienced talent, whether it was Matt Danowski or Steven Berger, who had big years, but now they have the number 3 pick. What is the need for Charlotte? Where do you see them going here at number 3?
Well, head coach Mike Serino, I done a wonderful job last year. You look at their team, and they got off to a slow start, really struggled facing off, finally found themselves, and they've made some really good acquisitions in the offseason to strengthen their defensive midfield. They pick up Pete Poyon to strengthen their midfield. They lost Billy Bitter and Jeremy Boltus while acquiring Poyon. I think they need attack. I really think, you have Matt Danowski, you have Eric Lusby. I see them drafting Sawyer from Loyola later. Marcus Holman could be an attractive pick at number 3 for sure.
So you're going with Holman?
I'm going to stick with Holman.
All right, well, we'll find out right now. Number 3, the pick is in. Commissioner Dave Gross is at the podium.
With the 3rd overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Charlotte Hounds select Tucker Durkin, defense, Johns Hopkins. The Chesapeake Bayhawks are now on the clock.
Well, Quint, they're keeping you guessing tonight.
Well, I'm getting the right guys. If you looked at my tweet earlier, they're just in the wrong order. Tucker Durkin will play in Charlotte alongside guys like Joe Sinoski and Ryan Flanagan and Brett Schmidt. Nation's best defender last year. I was just impressed with the way his ground ball game improved, his off-ball game. I thought he looked faster last year, playing for a pretty strong Johns Hopkins system defensively.
Can we say now, if you look at this, Charlotte defensively, Joe Sanowski, Ryan Flanagan, Tucker Durkin, Brett Schmidt, Ricky Pages, that's shaping up as a fairly, dominating or physical defense just on paper. How would you sort of describe that group?
It's good. When you look at Charlotte, that's a strength of the team. And defensive midfield, to me, is where they struggled last year, early on in the season. They pick up Jerry Riley. Jovan Miller's kind of a swing guy. He plays offense, defense. But since the end of last season, they picked up Casey Cittadino, Kevin Drew from Rochester, former Syracuse Orangeman, and then Chris Schiller, who's been out of the league for a bunch of years, I believe now. But all of a sudden, they have a good, close defense and a lot of solid defensive midfielders. So Mike Serino and that entire crew are improving. And they're they've proven to me to be a really professional organization, and they're going to get better. However, whether it's a college draft, whether it's acquiring free agents, or whether it's having guys just walk on and try out.
Whenever you talk to head coach Mike Serino, always mentions he wants athletes, and Tucker Durkin is definitely that. And a team that's full of athletes and full of talent, the Chesapeake Bayhawks, and their pick is in at number 4.
It'll be Bernhardt. Just throwing that out there.
100%.
100%.
All right. Let's see if you're right. To the podium.
With the 4th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Chesapeake Bayhawks select Jesse Bernhardt, defense, Maryland. The Hamilton Nationals are now on the clock.
Now, the interesting thing to me about this draft is it's not entirely there's a couple defenders to me who would start kind of a domino thing, and I think you're going to see McGill taken later on in the first round. Dave Cottle made it clear a couple weeks ago.
Is there a happier guy in the room right now, by the way? I've been talking to him before the draft.
He was worried that Hamilton would scoop up Jesse Bernhardt. Coach Cottle has an extremely high regard for all the Maryland athletes in this draft. Bernhardt is a playmaker extraordinary. Plays at such a fast speed when you watch him, whether it's getting ground balls, whether it's challenging ball carriers. Confidence through the roof. He's fearless. He gets out and challenges guys. He gets the ball on the carpet and hustles off the field, and awful fun to watch him play. I know his dad is an assistant coach at Penn State, a football team, and there's some talk that Jesse may go to Penn State for a 5th year to try to walk on that football team. So we'll see how that develops.
Well, a guy that hopes that's not the case is John Tillman, head coach of Maryland, with his thoughts on Jesse Bernhardt.
I think he's a guy that can do everything, and that's he doesn't really have any weaknesses. He's a guy that when it comes to covering an opponent, he can play a guy up top or down low. He's got great speed. But also can create offense and also is great when the ball's on the ground. Jesse is one of our fastest players, so he can, in the open field, run with the best of them, yet he's strong and he's got great change of direction. So, if a guy does try to body him up, he can hold his own. He understands how to use his leverage very, very well. And as he's running, if guys change direction, he's got great balance, great footwork, and he'll run with them.
Jesse Bernhardt to the Bayhawks. We see that he fits into an aging defense, but one that still has some talent, and he'll offer that athleticism as you speak of. Anything more on this pick?
They have a lot of polls. Remember, They got Michael Simon, they have Haas Stetler, they have Barney Ehrman. Somebody, either Ehrman or Bernhardt, and Coach Cottle told me he thinks Bernhardt ultimately could be a close defender. You got Brian Spallina and Nicky Polanco, 2 veterans in this league, may play a year, 2 or 3 more. So Bernhardt's kind of insurance for the future.
Quality pick for the Bayhawks coming off an MLL championship in 2012. Well, pick number 2 for Hamilton. Remember, they have 11 tonight, is in. Up to the podium, Dave Gross.
Give me an attackman.
With the 5th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Hamilton Nationals select Josh Hawkins, midfield, Loyola. The Boston Cannons are on the clock.
Josh Hawkins from the Loyola Greyhounds coming off a national championship. Quint, we've both seen him play a lot. He's a Baltimore guy. I know you mentioned LaPierre is an unbelievable athlete, toughness, but Hawkins a burner. He's shown that he has an offensive skill set. Why Hawkins?
Well, when you look at the Hamilton team, they're 2 shorties that come back this year, Donnie Moss and Bryce Queener. So, that's an area of need, and Hawkins is a potential all-star in this league. Really good wheels. Just a hammer for a cross-check. I watched some cut-ups. Charlie Toomey actually sent me some cut-ups of their defensive midfield, both him and Scott Ratliff, who we'll see later on in this draft. But what stood out from Hawkins was just the way he bodies up. He really gets out and attacks guys, and he has got a hammer for a cross-check. Very aggressive, good off the ground, talented in transition. You saw his offensive game in the playoffs. The way he can carry in and the way Loyola likes to carry in and attack on 4-on-4s and 5-on-5s. To me, athletically, he fits in right away in the league, and it's amazing. You have 2 defensive midfielders taken in the top 5 picks.
I was just going to say quickly.
And 3 overall if you count Bernhardt as a defensive midfielder, with a pole.
Are these 2 players that can play and coexist on the field together? I mean, in terms of, like you said, defensive midfielders that have yet to really prove that they have a consistent offensive skill set.
No, but this league is based. You need a strong defensive midfield that can stand up, because the best players in this league, the Paul Rabels in the league, the Kyle Dixons, the Ben Hunts. When you look at the good teams, last year with Denver, they were kind of an exception to that rule because their offense was from Brendan Mundorf behind the goal. But typically, when you look at championship teams in Major League Lacrosse, they are midfield-oriented teams. This is a midfielders league, and if you've got shorties who can lock down on their man and don't require slides, that's a big advantage.
Well, you mentioned Paul Rabel, his team, the Boston Cannons, have their pick at number 6. Up to the podium, Dave Gross.
With the 6th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Draft, the Boston Cannons select Cam Flint, midfield, Denver. The Denver Outlaws are now on the clock.
I've got Quid's first round right now, and you're getting killed, my man.
I'm not getting killed.
You did not have Cam
I
Flint
had
to
Baum,
Boston.
LaPierre, Durkin, and Bernhardt all
But
in the
did you
first
have?
round.
Oh yeah,
No.
but you didn't have the right teams.
No.
So how are we breaking this down
Well,
percentage-wise?
No, we got to count it. They're reading my best available list. At least.
Okay.
Cam Flint was injured last year, and that's why his season of 16 goals and 7 assists can be taken with a grain of salt. You go back to his prior season, and to me, he was really sitting on a big year last year. I thought he played a lot of lacrosse last year in some games. He's like a 40-minute guy. They just leave him out there. He plays O, he plays D. What I like about Flint, in a draft where there are a lot of good midfielders, but many of them have one thing they do particularly well. They're either dodgers, they're shooters without good feet, or they can't play defense. To me, Flint can do 2 or 3 or all of those reasonably well. He's a good defender. He's Canadian. Played a lot of indoor, obviously, in the Canadian game. You're going to get more reps defensively. He's a good shooter from mid-range with that, right hand. He's got a quick release. And he's a strong power, two-handed cradle type dodger. So he offers something that some of these middies that you'll see drafted a little later don't have, and that's the complete game.
Well, the two key players when you speak about the Boston Cannons, obviously Paul Rabel, but also Ryan Boyle. And when you talk about difference makers at the midfield, obviously Mike Stone had a big year and they have some athletes there, but is Cam Flint a guy you expect to come in and maybe offer something to that midfield that needed help at times? Because at times, you and I discussed it, it was watch Paul Rabel dodge. Yeah,
Boston last year was 9-5. I thought they needed, from a need standpoint, they needed a defender. Let's not forget that, because they lost Jack Reed, and they still need a starting defender. But the midfield dodging help. If you could take Rabel and lock him off and take Boyle and lock him off, too often nobody else could gain penetration. I love Kevin Buchanan. He's not a dodger. He's an off-ball guy. Pasque, the classic off-ball guy. So if they can add another dodger, another weapon, a guy who can run by their man, and now you got to slide to Boyle, you got to slide to Rabel, and you got to slide to Flint, that's going to be a big deal for Boston.
Denver Outlaws are up next. Surprised many, myself included, when they made that run to the MLL championship game. Where do you see them going? What's the need for Denver?
I know they liked Flint. I know they liked Cam Flint. Tony Seaman did. When I pull up Denver, you think about 11-3 last year. They traded Pete Poyon. They get Eric Martin back healthy this year. They traded Casey Cittadino. I had them needing some short-stick defensive midfielders. Unfortunately, the two best guys are gone right now. Midfield dodgers was another one, and maybe close defense. So do they dip in and take a Landon Carr from Maryland this early? I don't see that happening. So you got to think close defense or another midfield dodger.
When you think about Denver, and you mentioned Eric Martin, I only think that at close defense, a guy that whenever you speak to Jim Stagniti, he always talks about O'Doherty. Is he a player that you think may be able to come in and be that second or third close D guy? He played a mixture of close and some short stick last year. He's an athlete.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at their roster as the pick is in, Matt Bocklett, Steve Holmes, Eric Martin, Dylan Roy, Lee Zink, pretty decent group, but not getting any younger. Let's see.
Well, let's see what they do. Up to the commissioner.
With the 7th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Denver Outlaws select Brian McGill, defense, Syracuse. The Charlotte Hounds are now on the clock.
Brian McGill, a close defenseman out of Syracuse. Great athlete, great in between the lines, picking the ball off the carpet. He had a breakout season last year, right? His junior year really jumped on the scene.
I thought McGill, he changed his body prior to the year last year. He lost some weight, and his foot speed was really improved. He had a great year. He had 62 ground balls. I thought it was a very average Syracuse team. Obviously, the record said that was true. But McGill stood out. This is a guy who played close defense. He played pole. He faced off when he was asked to really improve and help the team. Co-captain coming back this year from New Jersey. I was really impressed with what we saw from Brian McGill last year. He was a bright spot. I think JoJo Marasco of Syracuse will get drafted somewhere before round 5. But to me, McGill was the best of the Orange, and I was very impressed with his play last year.
Denver Outlaws add a close defenseman that's talented in between the lines. Charlotte's up next. We saw what they did at number 3, their second pick in the first round. They picked up Tucker Durkin, their close defenseman. Take a look at the men behind the Charlotte Hounds. It's Mike Serino on your left, Wade Lephart, and one of their scouts going through and seeing who is the best available. Quinn, who's the best available?
I think they have to take Mike Sawyer from Loyola. 50-goal scorer, 52 goals last year.
He's in the house, by the way.
From Waxhaw, North Carolina, right-handed, sensational wing shooter. I think they got to go with a little local flavor.
Well, let's see if they do. Up to the podium, and Commissioner Dave Gross.
With the 8th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Charlotte Hounds select Mike Sawyer, attack Loyola. That ends the first round. Boston is now on the clock to start the second round.
We're going to head to commercial. When we get back, though, we'll break down Mike Sawyer and the pick by the Charlotte Hounds. Stick with us. We're on the Major League Lacrosse YouTube channel. We'll be right back.
For some, glory is measured in gallons of sweat. The spotlight is a distraction. Teamwork reigns. And every sunrise brings a score of 0-0.
Spectacular goal! Albert looking to be the hero. In front, there's Lowe! He fires and scores! Kevin Lowe! 4 seconds left. Boyle outside the arc. Inside the pass. Quizzani! He scores! Max Quizzani with a buzzer beater!
Keeping up with Major League Lacrosse has never been easier. Get all the latest news, highlights, and scores right to your smartphone with the MLL app for iPhone and Android. Download yours today.
Welcome back to the 2013 Major League Lacrosse Draft. We're in the Liberty Ballroom at the Marriott in downtown Philadelphia. Round 1 is in the books. The number 1 pick, no real surprise, Peter Baum out of Colgate. Then it went defensive midfield, Chris LaPierre, then Tucker Durkin, Jesse Bernhardt out of Maryland. Hamilton then went another midfielder, Josh Hawkins. Boston picked up Denver midfielder Cam Flint. Denver then went with Brian McGill out of Syracuse. And the last pick of the first round, the local kid, Mike Sawyer from the Charlotte Hounds. He'll join us, Quint, in a moment.
Yeah, the only surprise to me is that Hamilton took 2 players in the same position, 2 defensive midfielders in the first round. That's very rare. They're both potential all-stars. You know, we talk about drafting for need. To me, in the first 4 or 5 rounds, you should not draft for need. You really, it's more important to draft a future all-star. You can fill need in this league a lot of other ways. You can fill need through free agency, through your practice squad. You can pick up marginal players from other guys' rosters and plug them in. And so you don't want to, find a rookie to fill your need. You want to draft a rookie to be an all-star. And I think in the first 2 rounds, that's the dream of these GMs. Draft somebody who's going to be a guy who's going to play in the All-Star game in 2 years or even this year.
Well, let's give Mike Sawyer his due. He had a breakout season for Loyola, one of the hardest shots you'll see in the college game. And it's interesting, if you look at it now, he goes to an attack unit with Matt Danowski, obviously an all-star in this league, but also Eric Lusby, a guy who he did a lot of damage with at Loyola. So the three of them are now a unit at attack. How much does that chemistry help?
Well, good, because, you got Lusby Sawyer, that's the righty-lefty combo. Sawyer, what stands out to me is his release. He's got such a smooth release off of his dodging. When he turns the corner, boom, it's either sidearm, three-quarter arm. I've seen him drop it down low. 52 goals last season. Second most in school history, which happened to be behind Lusby's 54, who went just berserk in the NCAA tournament. An honorable mention All-American the prior year as a sophomore. So he's built a very consistent resume, and you like to see that. We don't like to see guys who are one-year wonders or kind of flashes in the pan.
Well, the first pick of the second round is in. It's the Boston Cannons. At number 6, they picked up Cam Flint. Let's see what they do. At number 9, up to the commissioner, Dave Gross.
With the 9th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Boston Cannons select Scott Ratliff, defense, Loyola. The Hamilton Nationals are now on the clock.
Loyola back-to-back. Scott Ratliff, long stick midfielder for the Greyhounds. Unbelievable offensive skill set for a guy with the 6-foot pole. Quint, why is he the right guy for this pick?
First of all, I thought Loyola could have 4 guys taken in the top 20, and with this early draft, that seems to be a trend. Ratliff is an interesting pick for Boston. I love this kid. I mentioned earlier that Charlie Toomey sent me a cut-up of their defensive midfield play. Ratliff jumped off the screen. The amount of caused turnovers, ground ball play, goals scoring. Look at his career in 42 games. 16 goals, 26 points, 140 ground balls. Just nonstop energy. Gets out and plays guys, takes chances, shot the ball at a high percentage last year in transition. I love this kid. This is a kid who, you look at him, you say, how does he do it? I don't know how he does it. He just does it. I mean, he was really, really impressive, especially in some big games last year.
Well, here's a quick question, though, for you. With Scott Ratliff.
I didn't think Boston needed that spot, but as I said, you got to draft all-stars. Peachy Ricci, Brian Farrell, or Ratliff. Someone's going to have to move down and play some close defense.
Let's head up to the podium. Next pick is in. Number 10, Hamilton, with their 3rd pick of the draft tonight.
With the 10th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Draft, the Hamilton Nationals select Jason Noble, defense, Cornell. The Ohio Machine is on the clock.
Well, Quinn, I think we see the Hamilton draft philosophy right now. They're getting athletes and defensemen. Jason Noble out of Denver, correct? Or is it Cornell?
No, Cornell defender.
Cornell defender.
Jeremy's brother.
Yeah, there you go. And again, they go defense.
I like Noble. Cornell's got a nice little senior class. 2 defenders could get taken today, Mike Bronzino and Jason Noble. Now, size is an issue here at 5'9", 165 pounds. Playmaking is not. Second-team All-American, All-IV. It was a defense at Cornell last year, ranked about 15th in the country. Started 13 games, missed a game because of an injury. Causes 2 turnovers per game, 35 ground balls. Really tenacious, excellent stick skills. Plays on the wings of face-offs where he does most of his damage. And he actually took some draws last year. He took 32 face-offs, winning 13 of them. So he'll do whatever the team wants. It's a strong family. His brother, as you said, Jeremy Noble, is going to be a star for Denver and Coach Bill Tierney. But, Jason, the only issue there, we have his size. And of all the positions in the league, you can actually see smaller defenders can actually get by if they have the great stick skills. The position where we've seen little guys struggle typically has been midfield, where they get kind of pushed around by the vicious cross-checking. So, don't judge a book by its cover. Noble's an interesting pick, and we'll see if Hamilton starts to pick all Canadian players, because there's certainly enough in this draft.
Very intriguing portion of the draft right now, Quint. 3 straight picks for the Ohio Machine, who went 2-12 last year. They've got to be productive in this draft, and this is a portion where they can really pick up some talent. 11, 12, and 13.
The pick is in. I'm guessing 3 in a row here. How about 3 in a row?
All right.
Kemp, Carrero, and Schuss. John Kemp,
Schuss.
goalie, Notre Dame. Chase Carrero, face-off midfielder. Louisville, Kentucky.
In that
Denver.
order. in that
no,
order?
not in that
Okay.
order. And
Can
Logan
you give us
Schuss,
an order?
Ohio
Or you
State.
just
The order doesn't matter. They get 3 in a row. Their 13th pick may be traded. We'll see. But those are my 3. I say goalie, midfield, and Schuss. What do I get? What do I get if I hit this? What do you got?
I got nothing.
Ted Garber, head coach on the left. John Alge, general manager and president on the right. As I said earlier, Ohio went 2-12. Thought they struggled first half of the year last year. I thought in the second half they became a competitive Major League Lacrosse team. Really looked good the last 4 weeks of the season.
The commissioner is heading up to the podium with Ohio Machine's pick. Let's throw it up. Commissioner Dave Gross.
With the 11th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Draft, the Ohio Machine select Logan Schuss, attack, Ohio State. The Ohio Machine on the clock.
And he's 1 for 1.
Okay.
Logan Schuss.
Yeah, last year during National Signing Day, I went out to Columbus to cover the Buckeyes and head coach Urban Meyer, the football team. And Coach Nick Myers invited me out to practice. And I wanted to see who this kid Logan Schuss was. I hadn't seen him play. And it took me about 2 seconds of line drills to spot this kid. Unbelievable hands. I mean, as good as Zach Greer, back from Duke.
It's a nice
as
comparison.
good as any of the great Canadians that we've seen in Major League Lacrosse. This kid's hands are world class. His production has been otherworldly for the Buckeyes. Again, teams have one thing in mind, and that's to shut him down. And here you watch the video. He can do it all. That's kind of a mid-range lefty shot. You see the left-handed sidewinder. Gets the goalie to dip and dunk. Senior, 6 foot, 210, although I don't think he's quite that heavy, from British Columbia. Ridiculous skills. Feet are the question. Voted co-captain coming up this season, 3rd-team All-American. Senior year on a 45-game point streak, 165 career points. He's, after seeing him in practice, there are shots he was taking that nobody on the planet's going to save.
Well, again, this is a good time to reiterate that players have not told teams that they are going to play. Obviously, they have to play out their collegiate season. But if you think about it, Quint, Schuss, Baum, Stanwyck, great young nucleus along with Joe Cummings. Let's see what
That's
Ohio
nice
does at 12.
That's a nice attack.
Up to the podium, Commissioner Dave Gross.
In the 2013 MLL Draft, the Ohio Machine select Marcus Holman, attack, North Carolina. The Ohio Machine are on the clock.
That's a good pick. That's a good pick. You know, I had Holman going in the first round, maybe as high as number 2 to Hamilton. I thought he was, one of the top attackmen in this group. That's a solid pick.
If I'm attackman on that roster right now, I'm a little bit worried about my spot.
Holman can be a slash guy. He can play midfield. 1st-team All-ACC selection, 2nd-team All-American last year, 74 points, surrounded by some young guys. What stands out, really productive. I love his energy. You see the passion. This is a kid who cares an awful lot about lacrosse. His dad, Brian, is on the staff at North Carolina. I know his mom, Lori, well. They used to live in Baltimore. They relocated to Chapel Hill. This is a good draft pick. I think this kid loves the sport of lacrosse and will play well.
Very important, and a guy who knows Marcus pretty well is head coach Joe Bresci.
Well, he's such a bright player. He sees things well before they happen. He, has been running our offense for 2 years now, and this will be his 3rd year. So he sees plays and puts guys in the right spots before they even happen. So I think his ability to feed, to dodge, to make plays at crunch time. He wants the ball at the end of the game, and I think that's what makes him special. And I think just to show how the second half of the season went when he was able to take 2 young freshmen under his wing and really orchestrate a terrific run in that second half of the season is a credit to him. And he's got great ability. We know that, but I think it's all the intangibles that he brings to the table that make him a special player.
3 picks in the 2nd round for the Ohio Machine. The latest one, Marcus Holman out of UNC. Their final pick in this 2nd round is in at 13. The Ohio Machine, Commissioner Dave Gross heading to the podium. Quint, quickly, who you got?
I think they need some goalie help, and the problem, they don't have another pick until 33. If they don't take John Kemp here from Notre Dame, they could risk not getting a goaltender.
Let's see what they do. Commissioner Dave Gross.
With the 13th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Draft, the Ohio Machines select Chase Carrero, midfield, Denver. The Boston Cannons are on the clock.
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
I talked myself out of that. I give you Schuss, Carrero, and Kemp, and they take 2 out of 3, but I thought they might have to go.
Where I'm from, 2 out of 3 is pretty good.
Chase Carrero, one of my favorite student athletes in college lacrosse right now. I love this kid out of Louisville, Kentucky. Plays for the Denver Outlaws. Don't call him a Fogo because he's a lot more than that. You look at the goals and the assists, 33 goals, 11 assists, massive ground ball totals. To me, he's going to be a danger in this league. If you have another face-off guy and you give him maybe a third of the draws
They
in a
don't,
game.
though, at this point right now. If you look at their roster, they do not have a quality face-off guy. So it would be interesting to hear from them, and we may bring a coach or GM later in the show.
I don't see him surviving the battles with guys like Chris Eck and Alex Smith when he's taking 30 draws a game. Remember, Major League Lacrosse, higher scoring, there's more face-offs. I think Chase would be perfect if he's going to take 8 to 12 draws a game. Now, if he wins a face-off, look out, because he's going to blow right by those guys like they're standing still. I mean, he is fast, really fast. And if you're a straight Fogo, a guy like Jeff Snyder, Chris Eck, Alex Smith, John Antonides, who'll be drafted later from Hofstra, you got matchup issues, and you got to bump the pole or bump the wing guy to Chase Carrero because he is blindingly fast.
Boston's up next. At 6, they took Cam Flint out of Denver. At number 9, Scott Ratliff, the long stick midfielder out of Loyola. I'm going to play a little prognosticator and see what you think.
You take this one.
I'll take this one.
Yeah.
Do you go Will Manny?
Yeah, that's a good call. That's a good call.
Attackman out of UMass, Tewaaraton finalist.
That's where I had
him. A bit small, but has shown that he can break down defensemen. Let's see how right I could be. The pick's in.
The producer getting
Commissioner Dave Gross.
With the 14th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Draft, the Boston Cannons select Will Manny, University of Massachusetts. The Hamilton Nationals are on the clock.
We are done predicting because
I thought I heard Will Manny.
We
right?
got this thing. We got this thing called
sometimes these
talkback.
headsets break out.
Yeah, exactly. Nah, that's a nice pick, Will Manny. UMass plays for Greg Cannella. Monstrous totals last year. Shot 54%. And there you see Manny. Some of his big numbers.
44 goals, 33 assists, 77 points.
St. Anthony's.
If Peter Baum didn't have his season, those numbers would have been even more impressive.
Third in the NCAA in points per game, 4.81. Coming off a sophomore year where he had 42 points. So it's not like he's a one-year wonder. Another guy who played at St. Anthony's for Keith Weiserick, who's making Major League Lacrosse. St. Anthony's has sent dozens and dozens of guys to the Pro League now.
It's not hard to see why Boston takes him here. And when I spoke to Greg Cannella, and we'll hear from him here in a second, he could not stop talking about Will Manny's determination. He wants to prove doubters wrong, while I'm sure people – not only in this room, but throughout his career have said he's too small. And Greg Cannella could not have enough nice things to say about the attackman. Let's take a listen.
He's a tremendous all-around player. Skill set-wise, he shoots the ball well. He's a great feeder. He can get to the goal. He rides relentlessly. So I think he's an all-around guy. In transition, he's thinking 2 steps ahead. He'll get the ball. He knows whether he's going to shoot the ball, where he's going to shoot the ball, or he knows where he's going to pass the ball. When it comes in his stick, it's in and out of his stick quickly. And obviously, as an attackman, you'd love to see all your guys get the ball in and out of his stick quickly. He does it.
Well, we'll see how Will Manny fits in with Ryan Boyle, Matt Posque, and Kevin Buchanan in Boston. But let's move to Hamilton. They're the team to talk about early in this draft. 3 picks already. Chris LaPierre, Josh Hawkins, and then Jason Noble. Defense and defensive-minded midfielders. Where do you see them going here, Quint?
4-10 Hamilton. I thought they were probably the biggest disappointment in Major League Lacrosse last year. historically, Hamilton has always taken the best player available or somebody that the Chesapeake Bayhawks like. Let's see who they pick.
Up to the podium, Commissioner Dave Gross.
With the 15th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Hamilton Nationals select John Haas, midfield, Maryland. The Chesapeake Bayhawks are on the clock.
Another Maryland Terrapin snapped up, John Haas. When you look at offensive-minded midfielders in this draft, he's a guy that when you speak to coaches, GMs, was high on list as a guy with just a dynamic offensive skill set, not like LaPierre Hawkins where you think of him as a two-way midi.
Well, he can play defense, and what stands out about Haas is big production. When you look at his numbers, really strong assist totals. He's an excellent half-field offensive midfielder, nailing the mid-range shot. I wouldn't call him a classic alley dodger. Good dodger, can invert, wing dodge, but more of a passer, guy who has a good sense of how to attack in the half court.
One pick left in round 2 with Chesapeake. This is a team, again, that won the MLL championship in 2012.
Yeah, going back to
full
Haas,
of talent. Okay.
Haas, real quick, 31 assists in the last 2 years from the midfield position. Very impressive.
It's all about, when you speak about Hamilton and offense, in my mind, and we haven't really gotten into this, is their roster. It's full of Canadians and players that are committed to play indoor, and they play that style, that indoor style, a lot of picks. How does that translate for Haas?
I have huge questions about Hamilton's attack. Garrett Billings, Cody Jamieson, Stephen Keogh. 3 guys who play in indoor professional lacrosse who may not be there for the first 3 or 4 games of the year. Who's going to play attack for this team? Or are they going to start 0-3 again? I mean, how many years are you going to start 0-3?
I think the most important thing for this organization is
getting off to
building
a
a roster that'll be there week 1. Well, let's see what Chesapeake does with the final pick of round 2. Up to the podium.
With the 16th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Chesapeake Bayhawks select Kevin Cooper, midfield, Maryland. That ends the 2nd round. With the first pick in the 3rd round, the Rochester Rattlers are on the clock.
2 Maryland guys, 2 picks. Kevin Cooper, what's special about this guy?
3 Maryland guys go. How many Loyola guys go? A bunch. Kevin Cooper, I thought at the end of last year, he's 6'4", attack / midfield, more of a midi, but did a lot of inverting for John Tillman in the offense. And Dave Cottle knows this program well. He was at fall ball practice, said Kevin Cooper was the best midfielder. When I threw him out there, people laughed in my face last week. And there he is, top 20 pick.
Don't doubt him, guys. 2 rounds in the books, if you can believe it. We're going to take a quick commercial break.
Watch some tape.
We'll be right back on the Major League Lacrosse YouTube channel.
Slide for Merrill, feeds the crease and a score for Boyle. Checked by Jack Reed. Good matchup. Rabel scores. Gets in front and scores. Bubble Rabel. A one-man wrecking crew. Drives towards the cage. Spins and scores. Boyle. A pass. A shot. And there's the record. 212 career helpers, the all-time record in Major League Lacrosse history. Tussman circles in front, Poske the score! Rabel up top, behind the back pass, Poske jumper score! Step on his man going towards the net, he shoots and scores! Again, cross crease, it's Sussman, scores! Rabel moves, head rush, score! What a diving effort by Rabel on the goal! Has the ball. Streaking to his right, shoots and scores! Cannon free, lefty shot, he scores! Kevin Buchanan has the icebreaker for the home team.
Well, welcome back to the 2013 Major League Lacrosse Draft. We're in the Liberty Ballroom at the Marriott Downtown Philly. US Lacrosse Convention going on behind us all weekend. Just a huge weekend in the sport of lacrosse. 2 rounds in the books. Let's take a look at some of the key picks. Quint, what jumps out at you?
Well, Loyola and Maryland now have had 3 athletes from each team drafted. Ratliff, Noble, kind of surprised me a little, but knowing his Canadian roots, I could see why Hamilton picked him. Ohio had 3 straight. Scary attack. Schuss, Baum, and Steele Stanwyck potential. And then 2 Maryland midfielders, Hawes and Cooper. Hawes, big assists. Cooper coming on.
First pick of the 3rd round, the Rochester Rattlers, their first pick tonight, 7-7 last season. To the podium, Commissioner Dave Gross.
With the 17th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Rochester Rattlers select John Rannigan, midfield, Johns Hopkins. The Hamilton Nationals are on the clock.
The Hamilton Nationals are on the clock, but we've got Ohio Machine head coach Ted Carver joining us. And Ted, exciting night always as you look to make this franchise better. You had the #1 pick, Peter Baum. What do you enjoy? What makes him someone that you thought we need to go #1 with this kid?
Well, a lot of our guys already know him from the lacrosse world, and he's a great person. And obviously, he's a dynamic offensive player, and he can play attack, midfield. And, we think he's, probably one of the best, if not the best player in the country right now. And, we're really excited because all our players were, like Steele and some of the other guys know him. We're like, oh, you got to get him, you got to get him. And so, we're happy we did. I think he's going to be a great offensive player for us.
Coach, when I look at your roster from day one, beginning of last year, to the end of last year, I thought you guys made significant improvements the second half of last year. Off season, you pick up Roy Lang, who had a big rookie year. Comatees, Joe Cummings at the end of last year, he clicked with Steele.
Right.
Now you get Baum, Logan Schuss at Ohio State, Marcus Holman, and Chase Guerrero. All of a sudden, it's like happening.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Quint, you've been around the game as long as anybody. The expansion is always interesting. It's like you're sorting players out at training camp and trying to evaluate. We got our core guys together. We just have to add a few more guys. And, I mean, you've said it on air, made some great points about that. And so we're really psyched. I mean, I've talked to, Roy Lang, and he's psyched to be coming. And obviously Cummings did a great job. Matisse came on as our season progressed. But we're going to be a much different team in a lot of ways. So we're psyched.
Where do you go next? What do you think is I mean, you don't have to give me players, but if you assess a weakness that needs to be addressed, what would it be?
Well, I think it's just, we may try to pick up a long pole, or, we have, some other D-middies type of guys that, maybe are local that we might be able to get that are really good. It's always interesting trying to figure out everything out, as you know, because there's no crystal ball.
Yeah, no, and things change.
And things change, being who these guys pick. So, I think we're still going to get some good players, but, it's the hardest part is you get all these good guys and you got to cut them.
We'll continue to break it down with the head coach. Yeah. The pick's in. The commission's waiting, so we'll go to him.
All right.
Hamilton with the 18th pick.
With the 18th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Hamilton Nationals select Casey Carroll, defense, Duke. The Denver Outlaws are on the clock.
Now, Ted, I've got to ask, this is your second season. Obviously, you've been around this league for a long time, but you came back. Right. What excites you about tonight? What makes this night special? We talk about the trades. Obviously, you're drafting the youth. And what really kind of makes this night special for you in this league?
Well, I mean, just to get everyone together and get the league going again and get the excitement for the league going again, and knowing we're going to get some really good players to add to our team. And, as Quinn said, things changed during the season, and we finally got our core together. So just looking at the group we have and adding these guys makes it kind of fun to look at on paper and see what your possibilities are, and so I think that's the most exciting thing, and just, again, get the season going. Everyone's ready to go.
Well, Ted, thank you so much for your time, and good luck in season 2. We can look right now, and you've got some talent, so it should be a good one.
You guys do. It's great. It's on TV, and we have a great year in the summer. So,
well, good luck, and
right,
we'll head back to the podium. Commissioner Dave Gross has the pick.
Thanks, guys.
With the 19th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Draft, the Denver Outlaws select Davis Butts, midfield, Loyola. The Rochester Rattlers are on the clock.
And the Loyola Greyhounds are in the lead in terms of drafting players coming out. In Davis Butts is a guy that at midfield, what does he offer Denver in your mind, Quinn?
Well, Davis Butts last year was Loyola's best midfielder. Downhill, alley dodger, took on the pole every single week, was able to draw slides and score goals. Look at 21 goals, 14 assists. I thought he played spectacular lacrosse in the playoffs. Low turnover margin. This is not a kid that chucks the ball around like it's worthless. Really values the ball. He hits Ward behind the goal efficiently, or rolls out of double teams and kicks it back up top to guys like Sean O'Sullivan. You see the spoils of victory. We've seen 3 Maryland players taken. We've seen 4 Loyola players taken. There's one thing with this early draft. It has always put a paramount importance on the postseason. You play well in May, you're going to get taken early the following year. With that said, I do believe that there are great players on bad teams that are still out there for the taking. You know what I mean? Great players who under the radar because their teams didn't advance far into May, and that's going to be the challenge. Everybody knows the great players from Maryland and Loyola and the teams that play deep into the tournament. It's finding the other diamonds that could be most valuable.
Well, along those lines, and I think you brought this up, and I thought it was a great point. Loyola's stacked. I mean, if they don't go back to the semifinals,
they return 8 starters.
But along those lines, you might not see these players if you're the teams that draft them until June. Well, if you draft a player, not to say you draft a guy because you hope his team's going to be bad, but a lot of these players aren't going to be available if Loyola does what they're supposed to do.
That's exactly right. We've seen that trend. The other trend we've seen is guys will get through the grind, done with Memorial Day, and they're not ready to play on June 5th, that first weekend of the year. They're mentally burnt, they're physically exhausted or injured, and they need 2 weeks of kind of mental and physical R&R to get themselves right. So, again, if you're in a position you're choosing later rounds, you're not talking about future All-Star, later rounds, you would take a guy maybe who's not going to make the tournament.
The 20th pick is in. The Rochester Rattlers, their second pick tonight and their second pick in this round. Up to the podium.
With the 20th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Rochester Rattlers select Ryan Clark, midfield, Salisbury. The Hamilton Nationals are on the clock.
Go.
That's a surprising pick and a reach, but we've seen Division III guys step up and be all-stars in this league. Every year there are Division III players drafted. We love it. There's Division II. We've even had club players who play well. So Major League Lacrosse does not discriminate based on league. I do want to go back 2 picks because we kind of glossed over Casey Carroll.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a good
Hamilton's
idea.
18th
Tell his
selection,
story because it's
which
pretty
to me is
incredible.
amazing. Returns to Duke after spending 2007 through 2012 as an Army Ranger. He is currently pursuing a master's degree at the Fuqua School, and so given his 5th year, as the Duke players were way back when, first team All-American in 2007, second on the team in ground balls with 68. Casey Carroll was an exceptional player his senior year and would have been a top 2-round draft pick in Major League Lacrosse then. Chose to become an Army Ranger, but now he gets his extra year. He's back for Coach Danowski. He's 28 years old. He's born on December 17th, 1984. Do the math. I think that makes you 28.
84 right here. He's 28 years
old.
old.
28. And so how cool is that he's going to play for Duke this year? He's got a family now, and he's going to be given a shot to play Major League Lacrosse. I think it's an awesome story, probably the biggest personal story from anyone in this draft.
I couldn't agree more. When I saw his name, I said, wow, that sounds familiar. And then I looked and I remembered, oh, wow, that was the guy that did join the Army. And the fact that he's back, and not only is it a great story for the MLL, but it's a great story for college lacrosse and lacrosse in general, that we get to see this now adult and family man, as you mentioned, play this season on a team that could use him. And that's the beauty of it.
Oh, Duke is stacked defensively. You got Henry Lobb, the lobster. You got Hips. You got him. This is a Duke team that's going to play very good defense, and Duke's going to have a strong attack. The question is, can they get scoring from midfielders? And they're going to have some midfielders drafted later. You're going to see Jake Tripucka and Dave Lawson probably taken later in this draft. It's a good Duke team this year. But Casey Carroll, one of the strong personal stories in Division I lacrosse, and can't wait to see him out on the field.
Well, the Hamilton story continues at 21. We've seen what they've done so far. Obviously, at the top half of the draft, it was midfield defense as a focus.
They
21,
need attack.
what do you
think they need attack. But, Adrian Soroketi's out there from Hofstra, lefty. We'll see.
Okay. Well, we'll find out right now. The commissioner's at the podium.
With the 21st overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Hamilton Nationals select Garrett Thule, attack Army. The Boston Cannons are on the clock.
Good pick.
Great pick. Garrett Thule is a beast.
He's a freak of nature.
He's a freak of nature, an athlete that many think is a one-handed dominant, which he is, but the things he can do with that one hand, along with his athleticism, make him as dynamic as he would be as a two-handed player. Why is he the right guy for Hamilton right now?
122 career goals, 6'3". I got him at 231. They're jipping him 2 pounds. You've seen him play in person a lot. I've seen him play on tape a lot. 2-time All-America selection, 3-time All-Patriot League performer. What he did last year against Navy with 5 goals.
One of those goals, by the way, I think you
the
saw.
Spinning
Yeah,
goal
the
was
spinning
amazing.
one was.
That's
where I realized he's an athlete.
Gets the Nutcracker Award, named after Jack Emmer for the team's most physical player. This guy, to me, compares favorably to a guy like Tim Gettleman, who's done it for so long. Now, there are questions about his long-term availability, given some of his Army responsibilities. We'll see how that plays out.
Well,
I love this kid. Again, if he played for Loyola, he's taken in the first round. If he played for Maryland, he's taken in the first round, no doubt.
And we can't tell you, we caught up with Joe Alberici earlier preseason. He did say that he'll have an internship with the Army lacrosse program, so he will definitely be available
this
for
summer.
season number 1.
Yes.
Now, going forward, we'll have to see. Obviously, they have commitments that are much more important than playing professional lacrosse. '22, Boston Cannons.
This is where this draft gets tough.
With the 22nd overall selection in the 2013 MLL Draft, the Boston Cannons select Lee Coppersmith, midfield, Johns Hopkins. The Denver Outlaws are now on the clock.
Lee Coppersmith, a burner at the midfielder, but don't ask him for an assist.
Yeah, still looking for his first assist. You had to. You're so mean.
I'm
You're so mean.
I'm stating facts.
Yeah.
I thought he was their best midfielder, though. Honestly, I thought he broke down defenses more consistently than John Ranning.
Yeah, Florida native, 15 goals, 0 assists. In 2011, he was member of the second midfield, 9 goals. Still looking for his first assist. Played for St. Andrews. It's the strongest program in Florida. 4-year record of 91-7. Very good downhill, long dodger. A guy back out towards the midfield line and use his speed to get by. There's not much there in terms of rollbacks. There's not much there in terms of wing dodging. There's 0 there in terms of assists. When you talk about the Boston system of offense, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how he and Rabel.
Well, that's
can
what I wanted
coexist.
to ask, because they kind of are similar in that.
Yeah,
I don't want to compare him to Paul Rabel,
there's
but in
no
terms
off-ball
of
game
straight up
as
athleticism.
of right now. I mean, if you're Lee Coppersmith, to me, you're working on a lot of things. You're working on your field vision. You're working on your offensive sense, where slides are coming from, and how can I get the ball to the right guy. He typically bails out and throws the ball down the alley.
He couldn't invert. Could he invert for you?
I've never seen him invert. I've never seen him wing dodge. I've never seen him cut. He's just such a one-dimensional player with very, very good feet and good speed. So the upside is there. This is like a wide receiver. You know, some people said Torrey Smith coming out of Maryland was a one-dimensional
comparison for you.
A one-dimensional guy who could just run posts, and that's it. Well, look what he's turned out to be.
If nothing else, it offers the Boston Cannons, if he's not on that same line with Rabel, another guy, because at times I thought they lacked a guy who could break down a pole or even a short step.
That's a great point. I think he's better off running when Paul's not on the field. I don't see those two coexisting on the same line.
Number 23, the Denver Outlaws, are up next. Let's recap what they've done so far. 11-3 last season, made it to the championship game. With the 7th pick, they took close defenseman Brian McGill out of Syracuse. At number 19, Davis Butts, Loyola midfielder. The commissioner, Dave Gross, is heading to the podium. Do you have a quick idea, Quint, where they would go here?
Defense.
Defense. Let's find out. Up to the commissioner.
With the 23rd overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Denver Outlaws select Landon Carr, midfield, Maryland. The Charlotte Hounds are on the clock.
You wrote in a note to us this week that this could be the best athlete in this draft. Why?
Size, speed, conditioning, never gets tired. And if you look closely at Carr's production last year, he was a quiet goal scorer. I think he put together a string where he scored a single goal in about 5 straight games. Seattle, Washington native. You look at his career totals. They tried him at offensive midfield. It didn't work. They moved him to D-midi. Now, his long-term Major League Lacrosse career is also potentially questionable with him pursuing a career potentially in the military. So we'll see how that develops. I love this kid, though. He's the type of player you don't notice. Everyone, I put his name out there. Coaches love him. They realize he might – there are some coaches in the ACC who think he's a better defensive midfielder than Chris LaPierre. Let's just put it that way, okay? Didn't come from
Big
me.
Statement.
That didn't come from me. That came from those coaches. He's the type of defensive midfielder you don't notice. Hawkins of Loyola, you notice just the way he plays, the hair flowing out the back, the cross check. He gets penalties. You know, Carr's a more quiet guy. You're not going to notice. One thing Maryland will tell you, and John Tillman, you rarely have to double team and support Landon Carr when he's covering the ball, and he flies. Again, speed, world-class athletes. You see a bunch of athletes in a row. Thule, 6'3", Coppersmith, fast. Carr has got the whole athletic game. Major League Lacrosse, these GMs know that there's a high premium on just being able to get out there and survive.
That seems to fit with Denver's sort of organizational mentality, if you will. They've got guys that you don't think of when you name stars in this league. Jeremy Sievert's had a breakout year, but Drew Snyder, again, not a guy you think of as a guy who breaks down defenders on a regular basis, but he showed he could do that. Jim Stagnita, their head coach.
They needed D-mids. I mean, they lost Casey Cittadino after the championship.
At the moment, Pennington, maybe
Pennington,
O'Doherty,
Drew Snyder,
Downing.
Justin Turry. These are the middies. Deckelbaum, Downing, Kimmerer, and Sieverts. They could use a hammer defensive midfielder.
Well, we'll see. At 24, Charlotte. The commissioner is making his way to the podium. Quickly, we break down Charlotte 5-9 last season. Only 2 picks, high picks. Tucker Durkin, number 3, close defenseman Johns Hopkins. And with the 8th pick, they took the hometown kid, Mike Sawyer, attackman out of Loyola. Let's see what they do with their pick in the 3rd round. Number 24 to the podium.
They got a bunch coming up.
With the 24th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Charlotte Hounds select Owen Bly, attack, Maryland. That ends the 3rd round. To start the 4th round, the Rochester Rattlers are on the clock.
Well, Maryland and Loyola continue to dominate the draft. Owen Bly, attackman out of the University of Maryland. Quint, we'll have you break down this pick when we come back from commercial break. Remember, you're watching us on the Major League Lacrosse YouTube channel. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
Seconds left. Boyle outside the arc. Inside the pass. Quizzani! He scores! Max Quizzani with a buzzer beater! Now he's all the way inside, he scores!
Miller trying to go over the top, and he slam dunks it in. Berger shoots, and he scores! Two-pointer, and he got it! Maltonowski pounds in front. Again, Miller trying to go over the top, and he slam dunks it in. You can count that one 5-4 pounds.
Always a special night in Major League Lacrosse. It's the 2013 Collegiate Draft, Liberty Ballroom at the Marriott in downtown Philly, part of the US Lacrosse Convention. And we're heading into round 4, if you can believe it. And we'll recap round 3 for you. It continues to be a lot of Loyola and Maryland stars. No surprise, the two teams were in the national championship game a year ago. Quint, as we look at this, what are some of the names that you think will really be able to make a difference for their organization in year 1?
John Ranigan's an interesting pick at 17. First-team All-American, former first-team All-American, does everything exceptionally well except shoot the ball. I think he's a good defensive player, a good ground ball player, good toughness. Casey Carroll, we talked about at length. Davis Butts ran the midfield show. Garrett Thule, freak in nature. And Landon Carr, who I have extreme respect for the way Landon Carr plays.
All right, well, let's head to the podium. And Commissioner Dave Gross, he has the 25th pick, the Rochester Rattlers.
With the 25th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Rochester Rattlers select John Kemp, goalie, Notre Dame. The Hamilton Nationals are on the clock.
Well, our first goalie goes off the board, John Kemp out of Notre Dame. But joining us now, President and Head Coach of the Chesapeake Bayhawks, Dave Cottle. And Dave, we spoke to you before the draft, and Jesse Bernhardt was a guy you hoped you could get. How excited are you to have him, and what does he bring to your team?
Well, Jesse can play down low or up top. He's great on the wing of faceoffs, and he really has the ability to pick the ball off the ground and go from transition. And with Nicky Polanco and Brian Spallina and Michael Evans, that's one area where we think if we play him down low, he can really help us pick the ball off the ground.
Coach, we've never seen a draft, and we talked about it right from the top about how last year Loyola and Maryland playing for the national championship. What's amazing about this class is a lot of their best players came back. Right. So this is a stacked senior class. I've never seen so many players from one school or two schools, Loyola and Maryland, be taken in the top 25. Is that because obviously they're great players, their team advanced, but do you think that they're on the mind of all the GMs when you get to see them play all throughout May?
Well, I think they are on the mind because you see them play later in the year. What we did is we went to practices. And when I walked away from practices for Loyola Maryland, I saw a bunch of guys that I thought could be very productive players in this league. So saying that, I think there's some other good players that are left out. There's some guys like, in my opinion, Garrett Thole and Landon Carr that went later than they probably should have because of maybe some responsibilities they have outside the lacrosse world.
Yeah, we mentioned
that. But there are still a few very good players out there, and hopefully we'll get one at 32 and start working with the next one.
Now, when you're coming off a championship run and your roster's still full of so many talented players and some vets that obviously are maybe on the tail end of their career, how do you approach this draft?
I think this is a 2-year draft for us. I don't really think we need a lot of help right away, but I think we have to start planning for the future. And if we can get a couple guys like we have on this year's team, Matt McCready's and Grant Kaleko, that are going to be good players down the road in a year, the same thing goes for this guys. We got to start having guys that are going to learn how to play, learn the system, learn how to fight and compete at the pro level, and then be ready to play in 2014. So that's kind of our goal.
Kevin Cooper, Spalding, 6'4", successful out of the invert last year, had 16 assists. What was it that you saw out of him in late last year, maybe in practice this fall, that caused you to pick him up?
Can I just hop in right now because the commissioner's about to make a pick for Hamilton. We'll get your answer when we come back. We also, breaking news, have a trade that will be announced. Let's head up to the podium. Commissioner Dave Gross.
We have a trade to announce before we go back to the picks. The Denver Outlaws trade Mark Matthews to the New York Lizards for Will Mengen and the 29th pick in the 2013 MLL Draft. With the 26th pick in the 2013 MLL Draft, the Hamilton Nationals select Reed Acton, defense, Loyola. The Charlotte Hounds are on the clock.
Well, tonight's always about the trades. It's always what we walk away talking about, and no better person to get reaction to that type of trade. Mark Matthews, a uber-talented attackman, played some midfield for Denver, headed to New York. Your thoughts?
Well, he's living in Vancouver, so that's one of the issues. He's playing summer box, which he didn't really play last summer. So I think there's probably those are two things that probably have gone into this deal. But if you look what New York's done, you had the midi from Hamilton, David Earl, you had the long pole, Waldeck, and now you had Mark Matthews. They just really improved their team dramatically.
Yes, they did, but you're stockpiling attackmen. What are you going to do with all these guys? Grant Catalino, Matt Gibson, Tom Palasek, Rob Pennell, Ryan Young, and now Matthews.
Well, they have a few guys on that list that they're going to have to get rid of down the road. But you know, if you're improving your size, which they did, and
yeah, they had us pretty small attack. Pennell becomes a showcase of that offense, in my estimation. You're going to have the middies up top, the guys like Pizer and Sebald, but Pennell should become the force. Maybe they're thinking that Matthews can be an off-ball guy for Pennell?
Oh, absolutely. You know, Pennell's going to have the ball in his stick. You know, if you look at their middies, they're very good dodgers, but they're not great passers. So now they're going to be working from behind to out top rather than out top to behind.
Well, we're heading into the heart of the draft. We'll let you get back because things are heating up. Dave Cottle, president and head coach of the Chesapeake Bayhawks. He, I think, was as shocked as we were, Quint, to hear that trade. Mark Matthews, a guy that Denver took very high last year, had an up-and-down season, showed flashes, and now he's in New York Lizards.
I don't think he was. He actually mentioned potential for that trade to me earlier in the week. But it was one that I thought actually would hit earlier in the week. Didn't until late.
Well, let's see what Charlotte does at 27.
With the 27th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Draft, the Charlotte Hounds select Mason Poley, long stick midfielder, Bryant. The Charlotte Hounds are on the clock.
Another long stick midi off the board, Mason Poley from Bryant under head coach Pressler there. He's built that program up. Talent is starting to come out of Bryant. What can you tell us about Mason Poley, Quint?
His stats are ridiculous, and this is a strong year for Poles when you think about guys like Jesse Bernhardt, drafted, Scott Ratliff, drafted. Poley, 6'2", 200, Downingtown, PA native, 17 games last year, 19 goals and 6 assists for a guy who plays with a pole, okay? 41 shots, 19 goals. He is an offensive-minded defender. That was as a junior. Had a pair of hat tricks. Defenders don't have hat tricks. He had a pair of them against Albany and against Yale. Scored a goal in 11 games. 11 games he scored a goal, okay? This is a special player. We talked about it earlier. A team like Bryant kind of flying under the radar. This year they get the potential NCAA automatic qualifier. Would be great for that program, but Poley was universally well-liked and well-respected from coaches and GMs of the Pro League.
Well, a guy that's universally liked and well-respected, Joe Spallina, joins us now. I don't think he's buying that, but you've been very busy today.
Yep.
No picks, but you pick up Mark Matthews, David Earl, Stephen Waldeck, and then obviously something we're not talking about but should is Rob Pennell will be with your team this summer. Just what went into this day and your choice and your philosophy going into this draft?
Well, a lot's changed in the last year for our organization. We were able to kind of really take a roster that was a little tired and flip it around and get, you know, we're fortunate with some of the way the rookies panned out, you know, Matt Gibson's and, you know, this is the time of the draft right now where we got, and we're in the 4th and 5th round, you know, Gibson's and Palisek's guys who were huge impacts for us. You know, and then when we, you know, really broke down at the end of the season what we needed guys that, you know, that big drought we went through when we played Denver. I mean, we need a guy, sometimes in this league you need a guy who's just going to pick the ball up off the end line and go and score. You know, a guy who's just going to effortlessly run by somebody and be able to score. And we got to work real hard for our goals. And you know, for us, you know, similar to the article you had put out, you know, we wanted to get a midfielder that could break somebody down without having to work so hard. And we wanted to get a little tougher with Waldeck, who's you know, who we think is adds a little bit of Long Island back into our defense. You know, and then to Mark Matthews, to be honest with you, that was pretty much, you know, it was an easy decision. Will Mangan's an outstanding person, a great player. He's going to be great in the league, but Mark Matthews, to me, is just like a Rob Pennell, is a generational talent. We're going to be able to put two of those guys together with Rob Pennell and Matthews, and you know, with Gibson and Palasek and some of those guys, and you know, we should be able to score goals.
Well, I know Quint's got some questions for you, but we're going to go to the podium. Commissioner Dave Gross has Charlotte's second pick here in the 4th round.
With the 28th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Draft, the Charlotte Hounds select Matt White, attack Virginia. The Denver Outlaws are on the clock.
Good pick by Charlotte. Interesting about White, you know, the understudy for so long behind Steele Stanwyck, and this year the show will be his. I think ultimately Matt White's a guy who can play midfield or attack in Major League Lacrosse. Really talented at the two-man games, the pick-and-roll game, but the show is his this season. No problems with this pick. Coach, all of a sudden I look at your attack, and you got a lot of, your entire team, all of a sudden you got a lot of talent. I mean, a lot of guys who have played in this league and proved themselves at times. Catalino, Gibson, Palasek, Pennell, Young, Matthews. Options to play some at midfield, compete for roles, or trade bait, or I mean, there's 6 good potential starters there.
Yeah, I think the positive thing, you look at it, I mean, I know Tommy Palasek ran out of the box at Hopkins. You know, Younger's done that for us for a couple years now, so, and he's a good energy guy. So, you know, I think ultimately though, like where last year we shuttled guys in and out, you know, Rob Pennell isn't going to come off the field, you know, so, you know, Mark Matthews, he's not going to come off the field. And he's a guy who showed last year he can run out of the box and create matchup difficulties. And I think for the first time in a while that we're going to be able to roll guys out there, and, you know, we're going to be able to put 6 guys out on offense that you can't shorty.
Couple just updates. Give us some updates. Max Seabold, we see him walking around, broken foot, should be back.
He's going to rest till the MLL season if we have our way. Nah, he's doing okay. Max spirits are high. He should be back. I think February 24th he's aiming to get back in wings.
Good. Mike Ward didn't finish the last year. I know he was injured. Is he back in the mix this year?
Wardo's back. He's feeling great. He's full workout. He's 100% cleared. He had a tough injury.
Good.
Well, you might be interested in this. It's the 29th pick, the New York Lizards, their first pick tonight. The commissioner has it at the podium. Oh,
he wouldn't be with
my
us.
Mistake. I was going to say, this is going to be interesting. That was the pick that was traded away. So
with the 29th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Draft, the Denver Outlaws select Eric Law, attack Denver. The Boston Cannons are on the clock.
Well, as I said, it's hard to keep up with you guys, all these trades here tonight, but Denver picks up Eric Law. And Quint, this is a guy, local guy. What does he offer them as an attackman? Obviously, he played behind the goal a lot with Matthews and seemed to be sort of the QB of that group with Demopoulos at times.
Yeah, it was interesting. I talked to an assistant coach who competes against Denver, and they really felt that Law was kind of the choreographer, the guy who runs the show, and really respected his ability as a passer, a guy who can anticipate, a cerebral player, playmaker on his own right. But he was really impressed with what Law, the way Law kind of held everything together last year for Denver. And you know, you think about the way Denver plays offense. It's Mundorf, you know, it's Mundorf's show. So if Law can learn to play with Mundorf, then that's what he's got to do to make the lineup.
Last one for you. You will start making some picks here tonight, maybe. Where do you see your organization, your team selecting as this draft sort of hits the second half?
Yeah, I think there's still some good players out on the board. I think this is a lot of times where you can find, you know, again, with picking these players.
Matt Gibson.
Yeah, Matt Gibson or Tommy Palasek if we get lucky enough. But, you know, some quality players there. We may look, you know, into some positions of depth and look to fill, you know, with some role players. Maybe a shorty D-Mitty is something we're looking at as well.
Joe, thanks so much for the time. You always keep it interesting. Good luck the rest of tonight
My
and
pleasure.
into this
New York
season.
Lizards.
Not bad,
New York Lizards. But let's go
Gotta
up to
drill that one.
the podium for the Boston Cannon selection at 30.
With the 30th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Draft, the Boston Cannon select Jake Smith, defense, University of Massachusetts. The Denver Outlaws are on the clock.
Well, Boston goes local. You see Steve Duffy, the head coach, picks up a physical defenseman out of UMass. They had one there for a long time. Jack Reed, he's now with the New York Lizards. They pick up a player, Quint, who you don't hear a lot about, but whenever you speak to guys that know the game about some of the top defensemen in the league, you being one of them, he's a name that does come up, correct?
Yeah, and UMass had a magical season last year. Lost some guys last year, but they do return 3 or 4 who, obviously we've seen Will Manny drafted. You're going to see, Kyle Smith potentially, and Colin Fleming, I think, may get drafted. So this UMass team, kind of a tough read to figure out. I don't quite think they'll go undefeated like they went last year, but I think they're going to be still pretty strong and still one of the
they've improved their schedule. That was the issue last year, is they didn't play a lot of top-tier teams out of conference.
Yeah.
Then they pick up – they made their schedule tougher, I think.
Yeah,
right?
but still, to me, the CAAs, it's always chaos. I mean, the teams always.
Hey, you don't have to tell me I went to Delaware.
No,
I know it's nuts.
It's one goal game city. Hofstra, Delaware, Penn State, UMass. Drexel. It's to me, it's a fun league to follow because then you just throw it in the hat and they have their league tournament, and something seems to happen every year. Although last year UMass held serve.
Well, let's break down Boston quickly, because going into this draft, you and I both thought this is important for them because they haven't necessarily taken the draft as seriously as other teams because they had so much talent there already.
No, they just made made some picks that backfired.
Okay.
I mean, the taking both Brattons, I believe they drafted.
Yep.
That they ended up getting 0 Major League Lacrosse games from those guys. 9-5 last year. Their roster all of a sudden is starting to get a little ripe.
That's big fair.
I think we saw that last year. Definitely needed defense. You lose Jack Reed. You got Mitch Belisle and Kyle Sweeney. You need a starter there. I like their poll situation. P.T. Ricci, Farrell, and you drafted.
Can Smith be a starter, though?
And you drafted Ratliff. What they may go to is a two-pole.
Yeah.
A two-pole like Hamilton has done.
Gotcha.
2 poles down below with the shorty down below and the 2 poles up top. That's an option. Midfield, it's around Rabel, Stone, Heim, Buchanan, I think has to play midfield now. You got Pasque, Boyle, and the rookie attackman, Will Manny. So they're an improved team. They're doing a nice job today.
Time for the 31st pick in the draft. Denver Outlaws up to the podium. Dave Gross.
With the 31st overall selection in the 2013 MLL Draft, the Denver Outlaws select Roger Ferguson, defense, Brown. The Rochester Rattlers are on the clock.
All right, well, this is where we really need to start earning our paychecks when we break down the second half of the draft and some of the names that may not jump out to lacrosse fans.
I remember watching Roger Ferguson play in the Under Armour game, and I thought he stood out. Just loved his turn of foot. Not the biggest guy, but just acceleration and explosiveness. And you look at what he's done in Brown and a lot of ball games. Rookie of the year, he got to play right away. Look at the ground ball totals. 118 ground balls in 42 games is pretty darn good. And last year had nearly 40 ground balls. Speed, again, it's paramount. It seems like these GMs are really focused on guys who are either big and strong or can fly.
And here are the decision makers for the Denver Outlaws. The legend Tony Seaman, GM, and Jim Stagnita, the former Rutgers head coach, now head coach of the Outlaws. And you mentioned playing right away, and Ferguson is an example that we could bring up as a guy, unless Brown goes on a surprising run, that could be there week 1 for them and offer something in terms of depth to their defense.
Wow, the Brown folks are not going to be happy to hear that. Yeah, when
Chip Turner, I'm sorry.
Denver 11-3 last year. They traded Pete Poyon. I still have they get back Eric Martin and they got rid of Casey Citadino. I still have some questions about their midfield scoring. Because last year when Mundorf got injured, what a shame that was. One of the most dramatic moments that we've seen in a long time covering Major League Lacrosse. But the offense is geared around Mundorf. Don't know if the midi penetrators are there. I'd like to see them dip into some midfielders maybe who can beat their man and score some goals.
I was going to ask you this earlier with
Sievert's had a big year.
He did.
I'm not sure that's his total game. You know, he's awesome on step downs. You know, when Mundorf draws the D and can kick it to Sievert's, awesome step down shooter.
Last pick of the 4th round, the Chesapeake Bayhawks, your reigning MLL champs, the 32nd pick in the draft. Up to the podium, Commissioner.
With the 32nd overall selection in the 2013 MLL Draft, the Chesapeake Bayhawks select Dominic Sebastiani, midfield, Delaware. That ends the 4th round. With the first pick in the 5th round, the Ohio Machine are on the clock.
Proud Blue Hen.
Great moment here at the draft. He's the sleeper. I'm putting it in right now. Rookie of the year.
6 foot 190 out of Morristown, New Jersey. He's not a sleeper. 2 goals and 10 assists. Only shot 13% last year. Had 34 ground balls. Really, again, he's a freak athlete. This is a guy who'll get out and cover you. A little bit in the Casey Cittadino mode, I think.
Smart pick by President and Head Coach Dave Cotto. We're going to head to break so I can enjoy this moment.
Sleeper.
Come on back.
Man. We're all over this. All over this.
Keeping up with Major League Lacrosse has never been easier. Get all the latest news, highlights, and scores right to your smartphone with the MLL app for iPhone and Android. Download yours today.
Spins back, left-hander shot to score. Westerveld turning the corner, scoops one, he scores.
Kimmel to the front, jumping pass and score.
That's a 2-ball. And that is a new MLL record. Oh, what a shot!
Hunt over the top, he scores.
Over the shoulder shot, he scores. What a play by John Grant Jr. And return. John Grant Jr. against Belisle. His spin move, and he scores. What a tremendous play. Dixon, free rebound, scores. Kyle Dixon skies for the rebound and dunks it home beyond the reach of Burke.
Lanning muscles his way inside, trades the ball off for Rubior. Inside roll, he scores! Rubior with an acrobatic finish. It is Chesapeake that hoists the trophy for a 4th time in their franchise's history.
Welcome back to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the 2013 MLL Draft. We're in the second half. We've made it through halfway through this draft. And joining us now is GM of the Denver Outlaws, Tony Seaman. And first question's got to be big trade of the night. 2 years in a row. Last year was Max Sebald. This year you trade away Mark Matthews to New York for Will Mangan in that 29th pick, who you turned around as Eric Law, the attackman out of Denver, thought behind the pick. Or behind the trade, excuse me.
Well, Mark had a great year for us, and we couldn't be happier with him as a player and a contributor to our program last season. We have done a couple things for our attack during the off season. We brought in Boltus, and we think Jeremy Boltus can carry the ball and be a right-handed feeder for us. We're a little heavy with the finishers, with Bachlet and McBride and Matthews. And sometimes some people have more interest than others, and the New York Lizards were very, very interested in Mark Matthews. They have been for a while. We felt after going through the championship last year that midfield was a position that we really needed to get stronger with. And we felt that Mangan is somebody that we know really well. He didn't get drafted last year, but he didn't play extremely well in his junior year at Rutgers, but in his senior year, he was Midi of the Year. So, and then we thought he had a tremendous year last year for Long Island.
I know Quint wants to get in here, but we got to get to the Commodium. The commission's in my ear, letting me know he wants to make this pick, the 33rd pick for the Ohio Machine.
With the 33rd overall selection in the 2013 MLL Draft, The Ohio Machines select Dominique Alexander, midfield, Ohio State. The Hamilton Nationals are on the clock.
6'2", 215 out of Baldwin High School on Long Island. Is going to be a co-captain this year. 11 goals and 12 assists last year. As a sophomore, had a big year. 16 goals as a sophomore is really good. Kind of regressed last year in terms of the goal scoring. Again, a midfielder, there's a bunch, good dodger, good alley dodger, excellent speed and change of direction. Just the finishing, not quite there. And if he can work on his finishing touch, this is a kid who could score 25 or 30 goals as a senior. Does everything really well, runs extremely well. Shooting would be his Achilles heel.
Somebody we were interested in.
Yeah.
Well, Coach, let's take a look at some of your picks and starting with that top pick, Brian McGill. What do you like about him? What does he bring to the Outlaws defense?
He's been a starter at Syracuse, and he's been a really good player there. I think we're really strong at defense, but Lee Zink is as good as anybody in the country, but we got to realize that each year he gets a little older, and we need the future there. So we think that Brian McGill is a guy who gives the Outlaws some more depth at defense, and especially for the future.
You mentioned Jeremy Boltis. You got him in a trade for Pete Pouillon. We want to discuss that, but first, let's go to the podium and the Commissioner, Dave Gross.
The 34th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Draft, the Hamilton Nationals select Mike Poppleton, face-off specialist, Johns Hopkins. The Chesapeake Bayhawks are on the clock.
Poppleton, a face-off specialist for Johns Hopkins. Interesting story, much like Matt Delente, who was an all-star for the Hamilton Nationals, didn't play much and then steps in after Delente leaves and has an All-American type season.
62% last year for the Blue Jays, 78 ground balls, 167 face-offs won. Now, it's interesting that Johns Hopkins assistant coach Jamison Kesterer moved, volunteer assistant, moved on to Ohio State as Nick Meyer's primary assistant. And so Poppleton will have a little new assistant coach in that regard. But had a great year. Fayetteville Manly is two sports standout, lacrosse and ice hockey. Good size, excellent production last year.
But as you look at it, Hamilton taking Poppleton, and I mentioned
he can work out with his old teammate.
Yeah, he works out with
Delente.
Is that them maybe thinking Delente's? I mean, can we read into that, or would you want to have two? Because Delente was a quality faceoff guy. I mean, that's 34th pick is still, we're still in that range of players you're thinking are going to make your game day roster.
Oh yeah. No. Well,
I guess is it too high to take a backup Fogo or a guy that maybe isn't going to be one of your starters?
Face-off guys tend to get dinged up.
That's true.
We've seen, it's difficult for face-off guys to play the entire year without needing a break or two. So if Poppleton's the best face-off guy in Division I lacrosse this year, this is a brilliant pick at 34.
All right, well, let's see if Chesapeake can be as brilliant at 35. To the podium, Dave Gross.
The 35th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Draft, the Chesapeake Bayhawks select Adrian Soroketti, attack Hofstra. The Denver Outlaws are on the clock.
Well, this seems like a quality pick at 35. Quint, this is a player you discussed as someone that could go much higher. What did the Bayhawks get in Soroketti?
They got a brilliant shooter, a guy who can absolutely rip the rock left-handed. I thought he may go earlier. He's not the type of guy who's going to dodge past you or create off the dribble. Good size at 6', 200. He's from Whitby, Ontario. He's got the Canadian background. Face-off yearbook, preseason All-American second team. Last year, led the team in assists with 14 and points with 38. Playing for Hofstra, Seth Tierney. Took 82 shots last year, which is a nice total. He's not afraid to shoot it. And he had one highlight. It was somewhere in like halfway through the season where I'm watching, and all of a sudden I see this goal. I'm like, what the heck was that shot? It was an unbelievable rip. Lefty sidearm, low to high, that just torched the corners. This kid's a really good shooter and could fit in for Chesapeake because you got the Dodgers. You got Hunt running downhill. You got Kyle Dixon running downhill. They spin it, you catch and rip. You can make a living that way.
And when you look at the midfield for Chesapeake, they're still so deep and talented. And by the looks of it and by what you're saying, they've just added another young guy to that mix And I think it's interesting when you speak with Dave Cottle, is their philosophy is we're going to bring guys in that we know not only are going to be at practice, are going to be part of growing this. It's a 2-year plan, as he put it.
Yeah, and this to me, Chesapeake needed a close defender or a defender. They got Jesse Bernhardt. And then I had mids. You know, they got some guys who aren't exactly getting any younger in Dixon and Hunt and Kimmel and Brooks. They picked up Dan Hardy. So I thought some young midfield blood could help them. And then best available. You know, they've been the dominant team in the league 2 of the last 3 years, basically. And so best available, I think, is always safe.
Well, joining us now, one of the dominant players in this league, face-off specialist for the New York Lizards, Greg Grinley. And before we break down this draft with one of the best players in this league, let's head to the podium and Dave Gross.
With the 36th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Draft, the Denver Outlaws select Aaron Prosser, midfield, Drexel. The New York Lizards are on the clock.
Well, the New York Lizards are on the clock, and we're joined by one of their top players, Greg Grinley. And Greg, first off, how's the offseason been? What's it like to be back here at the MLL Draft? I remember talking to you last season. Can you believe that we're only a couple months away from another year?
It goes quick, man. You know, last year was all about just getting the knee back to full strength. And, you know, to be honest, I came into camp out of shape. I wasn't ready.
You out of shape? How's that possible?
There it is. There it is. The guy who runs 100 miles a day. I knew he was going to come. No, you know, I came into camp and it was just getting the knee. I was obsessed with getting the knee ready to roll. And even the first couple games, I was just freaked out. I didn't know if it would be ready to go. This year, it's been all about being in really good shape. You called me old, so now I got to step it up a notch.
I'm still waiting to see where that came down.
He remembers. He's like an elephant.
I don't mess around,
He remembers
man.
every
And if I don't
comment.
remember it, my fiance remembers it.
I remember talking to you at the draft. You were at the draft,
Oh, yeah.
and I remember talking it. And after watching the showcase, there was something that's back when they had the showcase.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember walking off the field. I don't think I'd seen you play at Penn State, saying there's something about that guy. You just see the desire. And like what I try to tell guys, like we can see the intangibles, the goals, but like what's inside? You know, what's inside
Right.
these kids? How can you tell when we're looking at guys, like what's inside that's going to make this guy like grind this out and make this team?
Absolutely. And, you know, in the end, it's just a chip on your shoulder. You know, I mean, look, this is not you're not going to be a millionaire playing this. And you hear guys in other sports say all the time, I play the game because I love it. Yeah, but you also live in a mansion. You know, we really play the game because we love it. You know, I came back from a knee injury because I really wanted to play this game again at the highest level. I don't go in any other league or any other tournament because I only want to play against the best players. And I'd much rather go 50-50 on a face-off with Chris Eck than go into another different kind of pro thing and go 99%. So, you know, we play the game because we love it, and you can't see that in someone until they show up at training camp and blow your mind.
We'll keep Greg around, but we're going to go to the podium for his team's first pick of the night, the New York Lizards, newly named New York Lizards, their first pick in the 2013 Collegiate Draft. Up to the podium, and Dave Gross.
With the 37th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Draft, the New York Lizards select Jojo Marasco, midfield, Syracuse. The Rochester Rattlers are on the clock.
I like that pick. You know, Marasco's a guy, to me, he's going to be a pass-first midfielder in Major League Lacrosse. Doesn't have the exceptional blinding speed, but he's got a good change of direction. He's got great skills. I mean, he's got really good passing skills. You put him around a dodging midi and a shooting midi, and he's going to find the right man. He's got nice assist totals throughout his career. But as I said, 23 and 18 last year. It's good. Excuse me, that was 2 years ago. Last year he had 19 assists. So this is a guy who, to me, can be a very good passing midfielder. You put him with Pizer, who's going to dodge downhill. He spins the ball back to Marasco, who then feeds somebody to can a mid-range shot. To me, he's that type of midfielder in this league.
Well, we had Jojo Marasco to the New York Lizards. And, Greg, you're a great person to talk to about this because you sort of became the face of this team. And I talk about the new name, the New York Lizards, new ownership group with Jim Brown. It was an exciting year to be a part of that organization. If you could take us through it, I know part of it included a trip to the ESPYs, but obviously an exciting time for you as an athlete and as a professional athlete with the Lizards.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, look, I didn't expect any of this stuff to happen. And, you know, I haven't been part of the Lizards organization that long. So for me, I was a new guy in 2010. And then, you know, a year and a half later, I'm considered a captain, an old guy. And I'm kind of like, oh, man. So, you know, last year we were talking about it. Last year we were at this draft. Casey and I were sitting there and going, how can we draft 27 guys? And now we're sitting here going, what's our helmet going to look like? Because we're sitting in a good spot right now. We got a lot of talent coming in. But what I was talking to some other people is like the most important thing is we have the core of our team back. We have all the same guys who know what it feels like to blow a huge lead in a semifinal. So even though we're adding parts, we're not losing any part of the core that really said, you know, look, we blew a lead. That's what we care about. We don't care about being favorites or having new guys or trying to be the Lakers of the MLL. We want to come in and we want to win a championship, and we know exactly how hard we got to work to do it.
When you welcome the new guys to training camp, what will you like a Rob Pennell shows up? What kind of things from an intangible standpoint will you say, hey, it's important that we do this like this and do this like this? This is who we are.
You know what's beautiful about the MLL? You come in as a rookie and you learn within 10 minutes what your team's like. So you come in that first practice, and if guys are joking around and they're kind of lazily stretching and they're spinning the ball around, you're sitting there going, okay, I'm not making the playoffs. These guys aren't going to experience that. They're going to come in, and we're going to be sprinting till we throw up at the first couple weekends. We're going to be in there crushing each other's helmets. We are so deep this year that people are going to be fighting on a daily basis to make the team. I was pumped when we got Andrew Hennessy. Andrew Hennessy is going to be pushing me in camp. That's what I want. That's what all of us want, because we want to win a championship. We don't care about the other stuff. So when the rookies come in, Rob Pennell's, not that he really needs to be told because he's an exceptional player, but when he gets in there that first day, within 5 minutes through the warm-up, he's going to know exactly what he's in for.
Greg, thanks so much for the time.
Thank
Make
you,
sure
guys.
you're in shape getting into training camp.
Always a pleasure.
Let's head up to the podium. Rochester Rattlers with the 38th pick. Commissioner Dave Gross.
With the 38th selection in the 2013 MLL Draft, the Rochester Rattlers select Brett Schmidt, attack Mount St. Mary's. The Denver Outlaws are on the clock.
Well, Quinn, it's been an interesting draft for the Rochester Rattlers. Just quickly, John Rannigan, midfielder out of Johns Hopkins, very talented athletically, shooting percentage a bit low last season. Ryan Clark, midfielder out of Salisbury. John Kemp, the goalie out of Notre Dame, very talented, but they have John Galloway on the roster, and Brett Schmidt.
No, I'm not going to argue with them taking a goaltender. One of their things, I had backup goalie. I thought they needed offensive midfielders, a backup goalie, and short stick defensive middies. They have acquired all sorts of attack talent. Mark Millen in the supplemental. Both Lavells, Kevin and Mike, we'll see if they play. Max Quinzani, they own the rights to. Thomas Wood, Ned Crowdy, and Billy Bitter. So they have all sorts of attack talent. I thought they could use some O-mids. They put a lot of pressure last year on Jordan McIntosh and Matt Strebel. 7-7. To me, they're one game? Didn't they lose to Ohio somewhere along the line?
They could have gotten in. I think at the last week they were at Charlotte and didn't pull it out.
They had lost a game early in the year that they
Oh, no, they
won.
lost at Ohio.
Yeah, at Ohio. That cost them the tournament right there. Finished 7-7. They acquired Billy Bitter, acquired John Ortolani, a face-off man, and Dan Kachi. So it was a team last year I thought would take that jump. They did take a jump. They need to take another step.
Tim Sudan, the head coach of the Rochester Rattlers, and you brought up Mark Millen. I did want to get into this story because it was interesting. First pick in the supplemental draft, Mark Millen, a Hall of Famer in this league. He was part of that initial showcase. You've been around the league since its inception. What are your thoughts behind bringing Millen in, and what do you think he can offer? Obviously, coming back after being dormant for so many years.
Well, this morning when I was doing my cleans and I felt really good, I said it's time for a comeback.
Cleans, power cleans.
And I was doing my power cleans. So at that moment, the comeback is very feasible. Now, I know I could play, but can I come back the next day and play? And if Mark gets himself into shape, there's no question in my mind that he can be a starting attackman and a 2020 guy in this league this summer.
Maybe Quint Kesnick, the 39th pick of the Denver Outlaws. We'll see. Commissioner Dave Gross is at the podium.
Baby, come back.
With the 39th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Denver Outlaws select Dante Fantoni, attack Lehigh. The Chesapeake Bayhawks are on the clock.
Denver Outlaws, brain trust, if you will, Jim Stagnita, Tony Seaman. I'll just quickly say, calling a lot of Patriot League games, Dante Fantoni's a player.
He can light it up.
He can light it up.
Yeah.
High lacrosse IQ, great at the two-man game. I think he offers something to this Denver attack. You mentioned it. It runs through Mundorf, and he wants players that can play well off of him. I think Fantoni can do that.
Lehigh's got 5 seniors that form the core of this team for Kevin Cassis. They easily could have beaten Maryland in that NCAA tournament game. I think if you played that game again with their experience now, they probably would have handled it better. Fantoni can light it up. See the nice totals.
Balance,
yeah.
23 and 20. You
got David DiMaria coming back for Lehigh. You got Hess, and you got Snyder. It's another strong season for Lehigh expected.
Some news. We'll head to the podium. Commissioner Dave Gross.
The Chesapeake Bayhawks have traded the 40th pick in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft to the Rochester Rattlers. In return, Chesapeake receives from Rochester Rochester's 5th round draft pick in 2014 in the Collegiate Draft and Rochester's 7th round draft pick in the 2014 Supplemental Draft. Rochester is now on the clock.
Well, there you go, Quinn. As we get to this point in the draft, it becomes picks and looking ahead. Anything behind this?
Well, to me, that's Chesapeake, the defending champs, saying there's no one on the board right now who we think can dress for us. So we invest in the future.
Makes
sense. I mean, you can draft. I can draft 10 guys right here. I can name them. I mean, Tucker Shanley of Princeton.
But to your
Jason
point,
Ganos, a defender out of Harvard. Chris Leitner out of Hopkins. Joe Lisicki out of Lynchburg. You're going to bring them in. Are they going to make your team? You know.
I can't imagine. I mean, I think it would be tough to make Chesapeake's team if you're a 2nd or 3rd round
Jeff
pick.
Tundo out of Stony Brook. Big assist totals last year. Matt Miller, All-American out of Notre Dame, defender. There's good players out there, but this is, to me, is what they're saying. Their front office is saying, we're not sure anyone remaining is worth 2 in the future.
Well, let's see what Rochester does with this newly gained 40th pick, final pick of the 5th round, to the podium.
With the 40th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Rochester Rattlers select Dave Lawson, midfield, Duke. That ends the 5th round. We move to the 6th round, and the Ohio Machine are on the clock.
I like this pick. Lawson's ACC tough, 6'1", 200-pound. Only 14 goals and 6 assists last year. You go back the prior year, he had a big year, 23 and 9. So a subpar junior year after a breakout sophomore year. Good athlete, battle-tested in the ACC.
And he'll match up again with his former teammate Rob Rotance, a current midfielder for the Rochester Rattlers. That'll do it for the 5th round of the 2013 MLL Draft. We'll be back in a few right here on the Major League Lacrosse YouTube channel.
For some, glory is measured in gallons of sweat. The spotlight is a distraction. Teamwork reigns. And every sunrise brings a score of 0-0.
1-on-1 matchup, and he scores! Boyan with a long 2, he scores!
Oh my goodness, what a play! Just as they drew it up!
Finds McBride, and scoring. And there's Brendan Mundell.
Seaverts lets go with a 2-pointer.
Brings Puyon. Pete Puyon cracks and scores. Going to the goal. Mundorf all the way. He scores and he was fouled.
Welcome back to the 2013 Major League Lacrosse Draft. The Ohio Machine, 41st pick in the 6th round. Ted Garber, John Alge, the brain trust of the Machine. The pick is in. Let's head to the podium.
With the 41st overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Ohio Machine select Joe Lasicki, defense, Lynchburg. The Hamilton Nationals are on the clock.
Well, joining us now, head coach of the Boston Cannons, Steve Duffy. Coach, thanks for joining us. Exciting night. Let's talk about your team and the picks you've made tonight.
What did you hope to accomplish tonight?
Well, athletes. You know, with Cam Flint grabbing an athlete there, and I think we got a real good athlete with Scotty Ratliff, and moving down with Will Manny. You know, and we're looking to obviously gain some depth within our roster, fill holes that we perceive that we need to fill, and we think we did with those first 3 picks.
You can't talk about your team, especially offensively, and we see some offensive players as your draft picks without discussing Paul Rabel. And how much does, when you select a guy like Cam Flint, and we talked about Lee Coppersmith, sort of resembles Paul Rabel's style in terms of that downhill dodger. Yeah. How much do you think about how they will work with what Paul does?
Well, you know, Cam's, you know, you guys cover those games in Denver. He's, you know, he plays a lot for Denver. He does a lot of things for Denver, and I think that coming into the league with so many good players, I think that he's going to be put into a role and fit right into that role, and I think and excel in that role. So, you know, obviously, you know, our offense and what we do offensively, we keep that in mind with our picks, and certainly defensively, and we, you know, quite honestly, we think we're very happy with the Cam Flint pick, and excited to see him play this year.
Got a question about Scotty Ratliff, who I love, and to me, he was a guy who's definitely going to go in the top 15 picks. Awesome playmaker. How does he fit with P.T. Ricci and Brian Farrell? Is somebody going to have to play close defense alongside Mitch and Sweeney, or you think he could play 2 poles, maybe 2 down below with a shorty down below?
Well, the idea is that we feel we're looking for defensemen that are versatile, and we feel as though with Kyle Sweeney, P.T. Ricci, Brian Farrell, we have versatile defensemen there. So, and Scott was a guy that was tough to pass up when you look at what he's able to bring to a team, and you know, with the skills that a lot of people are deemed to be MLL ready. So we were excited to have him.
Steve, thanks so much for the time.
Thanks for having
Enjoy
me, guys.
the rest of the night. Good luck this season.
Thanks, guys.
Forward to getting up to Boston this summer.
Always a good time. All right, well, Hamilton's on the clock with the 42nd pick. They've had a big night. Obviously, number 2 pick and number 5 pick, Chris LaPierre and Josh Hawkins started things off. We've got the pick at the podium with the commissioner, Dave Gross.
With the 42nd overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Hamilton Nationals select Jake Tripucka, midfield, Duke. The Charlotte Hounds are on the clock.
Want to go back real quick to Ohio's pick, Joe Lasicki out of Lynchburg. Before we talk about Tripucka, 6'2", 205, Lasicki. Huge ground ball numbers, 89, 41 caused turnovers, ODAC Player of the Year. You could argue that he's the best defensive player in Division III lacrosse.
And it brings up a storyline or something that I really enjoy about Major League Lacrosse that you touched on early in this draft, where the MLL doesn't care where you played college lacrosse. It's all about what you can do. Steve Duffy's got a guy on his team, Mike Stone, who is a dynamic midfielder, D3 guy. Steven Berger's the name that comes up.
And Gorenlian talked about that chip.
Yep.
How you have to have that. That hunger's got to be there. And Division III guys are going to have that chip. They're going to have that chip when that first day of practice. They got to prove, got to prove, got to prove, got to prove. And that hunger's worth a lot. That hunger's worth a ton.
Well, the hunger's worth a ton, but what maybe is the biggest challenge that he'll face initially, that first couple weeks of training camp, maybe if he gets in a game, sometimes I do think you see it takes a season for them to maybe be regular contributors. Is it speed of the game, size of the players?
Yeah, it's a little of that. You know, to me, it's more of a belief. Like Steven Berger, you know, didn't make Long Island that first year when he was on their practice squad, but he was driving up from Baltimore to Long Island, 5 hours, 6 in traffic. And I remember the coaches saying, we got this guy Berger out of Washington College he's going to be okay. You know, and it took him a while, and the coaches were maybe like, this is not for real. This is not really happening. And then finally he gets an opportunity So sometimes it could be tougher for those guys to crack. But you know, again, it comes down to belief. Got to have the belief, and you got to have the hunger.
Well, on the other side of things, Jake Tripucka for Hamilton out of Duke, big-time program.
I think he's sitting on a really good senior year. Again, a guy in the I have a lot of respect for the ACC and the midfielders in the league. When you're competing against a John Hawes who got drafted, a Landon Carr, you know, the guys from Carolina, the good athletes. It's such an athletic conference. If you're a starter in the ACC, that as a senior, that should put you on the radar to play in Major League Lacrosse. Tripucka had good assist totals, 12 assists, was at his best last year, dodging from the wing. He's got kind of that stutter step dodge. Diving across the crease will actually help his game. I can remember many times last year where Tripucka put himself kind of on goal line extended on a re-dodge, trying to cut across, and ended up diving in the crease. That's legal as a pro, and I think he'll appreciate that.
He'll have some fun with that. Well, what's your best available here, Quint? We're at 43.
Best
Charlotte
available.
Hounds, 5-9 last season. We saw what they did early. Tucker Durkin, Mike Sawyer,
Got
Owen
two goal
Blind.
scorers. Zach Palmer out of Hopkins, Robert Church out of Drexel, still on my list. Jeff Tundo, a midfielder out of Stony Brook. Max Van Burgundian, midfielder out of Cornell, would be some guys I consider here.
All right, well, let's find out. To the podium, Dave Gross.
With the 43rd overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Charlotte Hounds select Max Van Burgundian, midfield, Cornell.
Van Burgundian.
The Rochester Rattlers are on the clock.
Quinn had it the whole time. Max Van
Burgundian.
Burgundian. It's phonetics.
It's phonetics. 6 foot, 195 pounder. Last year, to me, was one of the most improved juniors in the entire country. Played in all 13 games. 17 goals, 12 assists. That's nice. It's 29 points for a midfielder in the Ivy League. Second on the team and first among midfielders for Cornell. Now they get Rob Pinnell back in the mix. He was consistent as well. He had a point in 12 of 13 and had 5 points, 4 goals against SU, Syracuse. That's you. Cornell's going to be good this year. Cornell's going to light it up on offense this year. I was looking at some of their talent. You got Connor English, who hasn't been drafted. Rob Pinnell comes back. Mock, Donovan, Van Burgundian. They're going to put John Danowski. I'm warning you right now. Cornell's offense is loaded this year. When you look at their guys, Pinnell, Mock, English, Donovan, Van Burgundian. Can't even pronounce his name, but he had 19 points last year.
Well, that's why we don't have him on the schedule.
That's good scheduling.
Absolutely.
Tell us about Jake Tripucka and Dave Lawson. I like what I saw last year out of Tripucka. I thought he really became a player. Lawson didn't score as much, but there's a big-time athlete there who scored 23 goals as a sophomore.
Yeah, I think, you know, a lot of times in offense, it's a little bit about dynamics and who you're playing with. And I thought that Dave really put pressure on himself during his junior year. You know, either trying to, you know, step up from being a sophomore. And I think he was disappointed in his junior year. And I know we were. You know, to be quite honest, it wasn't for lack of effort. It just sometimes
it's a legit athlete, isn't he? 6'2",
But he's a terrific athlete. He can play defense. He can shoot with either hand. He can find the open man. And, you know, I think that given, you know, in the right place, given the right opportunity, I think Dave is going to be a terrific pro.
That's up to you this year.
Head coach of the Duke Blue Devils, John Danowski, is going to stick with us, but we're going to head to the podium quickly for the 44th pick, Rochester Rattlers. Dave Gross.
With the 44th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Rochester Rattlers select Matt Miller, defense, Notre Dame. The Rochester Rattlers are on the clock.
Matt Miller, All-American out of Notre Dame. Jerry Byrne and Coach Corrigan doing such a fine job. #1 scoring defense in the country. Coach Danowski, earlier in the day, you had a Duke athlete by the name of Casey Carroll. And some of our viewers, I'm sure, are too young to remember him. 2007, first-team All-American. I went back, I looked at the numbers. Huge ground ball totals, 68 ground balls. What's it been like to have him back as part of your program in the fall?
It's a phenomenal story, an extremely unique one. We just feel really lucky to be able to be around Casey. I mean, here's a guy who's a graduate student, husband, father, and lacrosse player. And it is true. I mean, you really don't lose your skills. You know, even though he hadn't picked up a stick for 4 or 5 years, he just stepping on the field, he's the same, and I don't want to use the word kid, because he's 27, but he's the same kid as when he left in 2007.
What does he bring beyond skills, which you mentioned he still has, but when it comes to leadership, obviously, coming out of the military, he's going to be a leader, but what have you seen out of the players that were existing in the program to see him come in? How have they responded to what he's brought, just in terms of personality, character, all the things you as a coach hope for?
Casey doesn't say much because that wasn't his style, even when he was an undergraduate. But when he does speak, the guy's automatically, everybody's quiet, and the eyes are on him. And he has stepped up a couple of times. But he's got a really unique skill set as a defender. Terrific off the ground, and he's a great baiter, in terms of passing lanes and trying to pick off passes and knock down. We call them nuggets. Everybody's got their own expression for them. But he really brings a unique skill set, to our defense, and I think that guys will learn. But the biggest thing our guys will learn from him is the joy of playing, because Casey's just really happy to play. And I think a year ago, when you're in the hills of, not to make it too dramatic, but in the hills of Afghanistan, you're wondering if you're going to get these opportunities again. My hope is that just the pure joy of playing lacrosse, that's what he's going to be most valuable for in terms of teaching our guys.
Well, one of the MLL's top players and your son, Matt Danowski, now on your staff. How has that been this season?
It's been really interesting. So we haven't lost a game yet, so there hasn't been too much tension, and we'll see how that goes. But Matt, I think, has been tremendously patient, where sometimes if you're a really good player, I don't know if you have the patience sometimes, with younger players, but he does seem to have a feel, knows when to step in and talk to the team, knows when, been very patient, very insightful, I think, so far.
John, thanks so much for the time. Good luck this season. Thanks for stopping by.
Always exciting to be here.
All right, well, let's head to the podium. Commissioner Dave Gross has the 45th pick, Rochester Rattlers.
With the 45th selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Rochester Rattlers select Noah Molnar, midfield, Lehigh. The Boston Cannons are on the clock.
It's a little interesting because I mentioned the Lehigh, the bunch that I thought were going to be targeted, and there is Noah being picked. Lehigh's they got a shot this year. They got a shot to be as good as they were last year or better. Good size, 6'2", 225.
Deceptive athleticism, I'll say that.
Turnovers, 21 caused turnovers. Kevin Cassis, it'll be interesting to see how Lehigh reacts to their success last season. Do they regress because they think they're good, or have they tasted it now, and do they take a step up? What you've seen them play in person, what do you think? How do you think that team's going to react?
I think they're going to react well, mostly because of Kevin Cassis. Spoke to him at the coaching convention a couple of weeks ago. They brought in some Navy SEALs, part of that program where they really beat the guys up, bring them back down. He's taken it seriously this offseason to avoid just what you're talking about, a letdown this season.
What's the trend in lacrosse where everyone's training, doing other stuff than like lacrosse, the program, and these teams lift weights like it's going out of style now?
You were talking about doing hand
get
cleans
against
earlier.
The wall and play lacrosse. I've never seen a sport where people do everything other than play lacrosse to train for it.
Isn't that our society now? Where anytime we're doing anything, we text, we tweet, we post about something else in our life outside of what we're actually doing in front of us.
Ryan Boyle, everybody, star attacking to the Boston Cannons.
I was told just to sit down, so I don't know if that's appropriate.
You've done that.
You're
Good
in
work.
a good spot. You're in a good spot. No Princeton Tigers taken yet in the draft, and only a couple from Cornell.
There's not a lot of us in the league.
No, I know.
It's been a while
since
since we
coming
really
next
made
year.
waves.
You got Schreiber going to be drafted first next year.
Is he projected number 1?
Oh, projected number 1. I thought he might leave early this year and come out early as a junior.
Well, your Boston Cannons.
It's definitely late in the draft if we're throwing out projected number 1
he's
for
coming
next
back
year
to graduate
and taking Princeton shots.
Boston Cannons, Ryan Boyle's squad making their pick at 46 to the podium, and Dave Gross.
With the 46th overall selection, the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Boston Cannons select David DiMaria, attack Lehigh. The New York Lizards are on the clock.
You just lost your starting spot, Boyle.
That's what they told me. I just went over the table and they.
I think it's a record, Quint. 2 Lehigh Mountain Hawks in a row in an MLL draft.
I feel good about our picks. Have you guys already started talking?
Yeah, I do feel good about your picks also.
I think they address some real needs of ours, some serious roster upgrade in some key areas. I think the Coppersmith kid is really talented. We saw him play last year.
He's fast.
At Hopkins.
Yeah,
I think he translates immediately in the league.
Can he play with Paul? Can they be on the same line?
Can
we were
anybody
talking
play
about
with Paul? I mean, you got to figure out a way, right? I mean, the answer is yes. I mean, he's a super strong alley dodger. Can create his own shots. Smart. Gives up the rock when a slide comes. So I think that actually, if anything, we need more people at midfield that can take some burden off of Paul and create their own shot.
You're going to like playing with Cam Flint at Denver. You call your old coach, Coach Tierney, and ask him. Flint was injured last year, but this is a kid, he can play without the ball. You know, he'll hit you with the mostly right-handed tendencies, but really strong, good mid-range shooter, and always moving and thinking ahead. So if someone gives it up, he's going to be working to get open for you.
Is Ratliff the next
And
PT
Ratliff's
Ricci?
a freak of nature in transition.
Yeah.
Like better than
So
PT.
we have another defenseman that doesn't like to play defense.
No, he'll yeah. Farrell is now the third best offensive defender on your team.
You know,
that's
last
actually
year
going to run them as you're going to run them as a midfield line.
That's the second midfield line.
Last year.
You're going to run that as a midfield line.
Hear me on this.
Farrell would be the second best crease attackman on your team behind Pasquet. He's a really good scorer if you put him inside.
It's actually a very good point.
Yeah, he's good. In high school, we often thought about
in transition, you run all three poles down.
Yeah.
Instead of subbing out, you just let them play.
Let them play.
Sweeney, PT Ricci,
four of them.
and Farrell,
and
Ratliff. How would you feel about going three poles on three offensive midfielders?
And then the other team gets the ball, and your defense is who? Sussman, Will Manny, and
we got to
Stone.
score. We got to score.
Stone.
We
got to score.
We got to score.
Or then call timeout.
Strategically, though, what do you feel? How do you feel about that?
You guys could revolutionize the
I
sport.
think we've just turned the sport upside down is what we've done.
Innovative.
All right, well, let's head to the podium. The 47th pick, the New York Lizards. It's not Long Island anymore, Ryan.
Actually, this has been a long time
New
coming
York
that
Lizards.
this brand got
the
changed.
New York Traffic should be their name.
To the podium, and Dave Gross.
With the 47th overall selection, the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the New York Lizards select John Antonides, face-off Hofstra. The Charlotte Hounds are on the clock.
They might be New York, but they stay with Long Island, huh?
Ooh, Gorenlian got some meat to beat up in practice with Antonides.
That's a rough gig.
He had a really good sophomore year 2 years ago. 64%, I think, last year, all around 54%. So much of the face-off game, though, is matchups and like who comes up on your schedule. You know, you face a bunch of killers, you're going to be in the 50 percentile area. If you face some scrubs, you can get healthy. I mean, when we break down, occasionally, if you go like 21 to 24, that could throw your whole season average. Right?
But you got to have a backup guy. You look at the last couple of years. I mean, you look at our season last year with Eck, going down. Alex Smith comes out of nowhere for the Bayhawks. You got to have that number 2 guy in place just because of injury, just to have depth, and also from a trade standpoint, being able to leverage that piece, with other teams is huge.
Yeah,
Let's talk about
64% down to 54%. Physical gig. I mean, facing off in the league is brutal.
Ryan, for you, just what keeps you coming out year in and year out? Obviously, I mean, you're like a coach on the field. We always talk about that. But physically, where do you stand and how much longer do you want to do this?
I feel good physically. I take relatively good care of my body, although I don't do things like the program.
Hand cleans.
And hand cleans. And they keep asking me to come out, which is obviously.
I talked to Kevin Barney earlier. He said, we'll take Ryan and Kyle any year that they want to come out.
I don't know if they'll always say that. For me, it's an annual thing now. It's a year-by-year basis. I be realistic about where I am in my career, and I'm content with that. I said coming in that I wanted to get to 10 years. I thought that would be kind of a legitimate career. Show a certain level of longevity, and I think I'm at 9. So hopefully you got a couple of years left.
I know you're not about individual awards.
I was going to say content with having more assists and going to be setting scoring records this year.
You're hovering that all-time points record.
I didn't know. I mean, I know it sounds cliche, but I didn't know.
So what drives you? Is it winning the championship?
Yeah,
Is it being on a team?
That's it. Just winning. I got it's all about winning championships. Obviously, the team plays a huge role, and we have a special bunch up in Boston from personalities and talent and chemistry, and that keeps you coming back, and that makes it easier. But the drive to win is really all I care about.
Ryan, thanks
now
so much
chasing,
for the time.
Now I'm chasing Spalina.
Keep chasing.
That's right. That's right.
Which
Ryan
is just
Boyle,
shocking.
everybody. Boston Cannons.
Thanks.
That was good.
Star attackman. He never gets older. Number 48, the pick is in. Let's head to the podium and the commissioner.
With the 48th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Charlotte Hounds select Brian Casey, midfield, Georgetown. That ends the 6th round. The Ohio Machine is on the clock to start round 7.
Quinn will break down this pick when we get back. Brian Casey, Georgetown Hoyas. We'll be right back. The Collegiate Draft on the Major League Lacrosse YouTube channel.
Keeping up with Major League Lacrosse has never been easier. Get all the latest news, highlights, and scores right to your smartphone with the MLL app for iPhone and Android. Download yours today. ShopMLL.com is your destination for officially licensed Major League Lacrosse apparel. Get all your MLL team hats, t-shirts, shorts, hoodies, and more at ShopMLL.com.
Strength, pass in front, score! Freestyle shot, and score! Crowley dodges left, stutters the bit, fires low, score! Quick pass to Earl, fires and scores! Pass out in front, goes off the cross, over the back, score! Earl, some dodging, Billings, through the wickets of Phipps. Ball machine. Looking for two, and he got it. Across the middle, shot, score! David Earl. Not giving up. Jamison drives the cage, behind the back, score! What a goal!
Welcome back to the Liberty Ballroom at the Marriott in downtown Philadelphia. It's the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft. To the podium for the 49th pick, the first one of the 7th round.
With the 49th overall selection, the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Ohio Machine select Colin Fleming, midfield, University of Massachusetts. The Hamilton Nationals are on the clock.
Quinn, our third Massachusetts player drafted.
26 goals, 8 assists last year, 6'6". He's a beast, and I love the way he sprints off the field after he scores goals.
That's his highlight.
UMass
he's a
does,
worker. They have
UMass
this mentality
does a great
as a
job
program
of putting their games highlights online. And so last year during their run, I watched all their stuff. Fleming he's big. He's 6'6", 6'5", and I love the way he scores goals and just sprints straight off the field.
Let's keep this moving to the 50th pick. The Hamilton Nationals to the podium. Commissioner Dave Gross.
With the 50th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Draft, the Hamilton Nationals select Cameron Mann, midfield, Jacksonville. The Charlotte Hounds are on the clock.
Jacksonville, a program new to the NCAA Division I lacrosse, but have some players, and Cameron Mann's one of those guys. An athletic midfielder, can play both ends, tough, and obviously he gained all the attention of opposing defenses, so he's been working week in and week out. Is he a player that can be successful in Major League Lacrosse?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Jacksonville's a program actually we're going to get to see end of January down in Disney. They're going to be down there with Loyola and Notre Dame, so I'm interested. It'll be good to get out and actually see Jacksonville in person. I watched highlights of them beating Navy last year.
I did that game.
Yeah, which was a significant win for the program, considering that Navy then beat Johns Hopkins later in the year, and it shows you how close some of these programs are to actually putting themselves over the top, getting into the top 10. So Jacksonville's doing good things, and I got no problems with this pick.
All right, well, we're a few hours in, and we're coming up on the tail end of the draft. Good time to go back and look at the first round and some of the key picks early in this draft. These are players, Quint, that organizations are counting on to come in whenever their collegiate seasons end. And remember, these players have not committed to play Major League Lacrosse. The hope is that they will, but if they do, these are players that teams are hoping will come in and play.
Baum, notable number 1. Chesapeake gets their guy. They wanted Jesse Bernhardt. Boston improved their midfield with Cam Flint. And I like Denver's pickup of Brian McGill, a starter right away.
Let's head to the podium for the next pick.
With the 51st overall selection, the 2013 MLL Draft, the Charlotte Hounds select Michael McCormick, defense, Yale. The Rochester Rattlers are on the clock.
The pick is in. Michael McCormick to the Charlotte Hounds. Obviously, at this point in the draft, Quint, you're building maybe some practice squad guys you can fill in at injury. Your thoughts on this pick, or we can go to the second round and look back at what we saw?
Yeah, just one thing we typically see in round 7 and 8 is that local flavor that you mentioned. Guys who, you might take a chance on because they can be there in person in practice and improve your team. And it actually gives them a legitimate shot of making the squad when they're local and helps you in the local community. So typically we've seen some of that in round 7 and 8. If we can now, can we get round 2?
Yeah, let's take a look at round 2.
This is a good round 2. Kevin Cooper down at the bottom is a guy who I know a lot of people close to the Maryland program really have talked about the way he has blossomed. Chase Carrero, face-offs and midfield, great speed. Marcus Holman, ultra-productive, North Carolina, good pick right there. And then Scott Ratliff, a guy who's a ground ball fiend and a threat in transition, as Ryan Boyle talked about how many offensive-minded defenders they have now in Boston.
Let's go up to the podium. Looks like a trade, possibly just picks, but let's hear it from the commissioner himself at the podium.
The Chesapeake Bayhawks have traded the 56th pick in the 2013 MLL Draft to the New York Lizards for the Lizards' 7th round pick in the 2014 Collegiate Draft.
Well, Quint, you mentioned Chesapeake, these later round picks. Now they've traded the 40th pick and the 56th pick. And in your mind, it's because there's not players available that they think can crack their roster.
I think they'll take Jason Ganos, a defender out of Harvard, who went to St. Mary's with their 64th pick. Or maybe they'll take Eric Smith, an attackman from Delaware, out of Baltimore, who didn't play last season with a back injury. Smith had what, high 20s or nearly 30
Younger
goals.
brother of face-off man,
Correct.
Alex Smith, current
he's
Bayhawk.
a guy, he can rip it. So those are two potentials for Chesapeake at 64.
All right, let's head up to the podium. Commissioner Dave Gross
Excuse me,
with
they
the
don't have
52nd
64.
pick.
They're done. I'm sorry, my mistake. They traded that for Jay Card. Chesapeake's off the board.
Up to the commissioner.
With the 52nd overall selection, the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Rochester Rattlers select Peter Johnson, defense, Yale. The New York Lizards are on the clock.
Don't worry about it, Quinn. I had that pick from New York.
Yeah, I had my two
trade.
sheets.
You can't,
they
you
traded
can't
it
follow
for
all
Jay
these
Card.
trades.
They'll pick those two guys up in the free agent period after the draft. That's something to point out. If you're a senior, this not being drafted does not end your dream of playing in Major League Lacrosse. We've seen a lot of guys come on as signed free agents and make teams and become really good players. So was Will Mangum one of them?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
That was an interesting story, and he was a big part of the pick tonight. And we should recap that. We might not have a graphic for you, but just to take you through the big trades this evening. Hamilton, before the draft even kicked off, traded away David Earl and Stephen Waldeck to New York for the 5th overall pick.
Huge win for New York, that trade.
New York's done really well with trades. Joe Spalina in the middle there. GM Casey Hilpert. Jeff Rudnick, part of the new ownership group that includes Jim Brown, the Hall of Fame running back. Also Denver traded away Mark Matthews, high pick last season, attacking out of Denver to to New York for Will Mangan, who you just mentioned, undrafted last season, but was a difference maker for the Lizards.
New York's done well. They've been active. They've done well. They're being aggressive. All of a sudden, you look at their roster, and they're pretty stacked.
And I always thought last year, and Greg Grinlian brought this up, that New York lacked. I hate to say, I think they lacked on-field leadership, and Greg Grinlian's a great leader, but as a face-off man, he's not there to sort of communicate things offensively at times. I thought so much young talent, and at times they just didn't seem to have a guy that would step up and grab control of that offense. So it would be interesting to see with so many players they've now added to that group.
Yeah, Rob Pennell, drafted last year, injured, comes back at Cornell this year. He's the centerpiece of that franchise now. To me, he's going to be an all-star in this league for many years to come. Here's some information on Pennell. First overall pick last year. If you remember that, his rights were retained by the Lizard. Kind of works like baseball in that regard. So they protected him to the New York Lizards, and therefore they still own his rights. Monstrous totals, 54 games. Look at that. Averaging 2 goals a game and 3 assists in his career.
Well, future teammate of Rob Pennell in New York, the 53rd pick to the podium, Commissioner Dave Gross.
With the 53rd overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the New York Lizards select Steve Murphy, midfield, Notre Dame. The Boston Cannons are on the clock.
Murphy's a Long Island native, lefty, a lot of playing time for Coach Corrigan and the Fighting Irish. Not huge totals. He can play defense. He's a good athlete, does everything well except shoot. He's played in 47 games. He's got about 32 points, 20 goals, 12 assists, sees the field well. He's tough. He's durable. Again, to me, everything he does well except shoot. And who knows? Notre Dame's got a really good team this year. You got Kimball, Cotter, Murphy, 3 senior midfielders. You return your attack. Defense, you got a couple new faces there. But Notre Dame, to me, is one of my favorites to make championship weekend. And I see Murphy's game improving to maybe score 30 points this year.
If we can just go back quickly to Rob Pennell, and you're as dialed in as anybody into the collegiate game. Take us through not only how he was able to retain his eligibility, but what he's been doing this fall. Because it's interesting if you follow some of his stuff, whether he's, I think he went to Uganda in a community service outreach, and we'll get that. First, let's get this pick, though. The 54th pick, the Boston Cannons. The commissioner has that at the podium.
With the 54th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Boston Cannons select Brendan Buckley, attack, Army. The Denver Outlaws are on the clock.
Brendan Buckley is actually a defenseman for the Army Black Knights, a very talented defenseman at that, much like Garrett Thule, probably lower in this draft because not knowing what his commitments are going to be when it comes to the military. But having done a lot of their Patriot League games, he was a guy that you could put on a talented attackman and pretty much wipe him out of a game.
First team All-Patriot League. It was a Patriot League last year.
I think he was Patriot League Defenseman of the Year.
Strong. Patriot League's getting better and better, and the adding Loyola to that conference a couple years down the road is only going to strengthen things. That's a good conference. I like that move by Loyola to jump into the Patriot League down the road.
Gotcha. And quickly, again, just to sort of tell fans about Pennell and what he's – because
he's not
went
playing
to Uganda.
This fall. No, exactly. And so I think the thing for him is a freshness and maintaining a freshness. So getting away from the game directly in the training, I think that's a good thing. You know, he's been there now. This is the 5th year. And so to me, the mental aspect of being there for so long is the challenge. So I like the fact that he, you know, worked and then you know, traveled and he's around lacrosse. Awesome kid. I love him. But it's good that he needs to come back into this year really fresh and hungry.
It's a unique story because, and you mentioned 5th year. I had a 5th year, and you're right. By that time, the fall ball becomes a bit tiresome.
Yeah.
And the message at times becomes not tiresome, but you don't want to put up with some of the just logistical things.
And you look around and you say, where are my friends? Well, they're not here in school. You know, who are these kids I'm playing with?
Let's head to the podium for the 55th pick, the Denver Outlaws.
With the 55th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Denver Outlaws select Sam Snow, midfield, Fairfield. The New York Lizards are on the clock.
Seattle's finest.
2 Seattle guys. Another great example
Drew
of the
Snyder's in the league already, right? Snow's got good size. Fairfield's been in kind of an inch away. You look at Snow's numbers, really good totals last season for an attackman, 35 goals, 8 assists. He's a power dodger.
He's a 4-year player, too. I think
Yeah.
he started
he
all
started
4
right
years.
away.
I remember doing some of their games as a freshman thinking, oh, this kid can play. And that's something you have to think is going to help him with his transition as he tries, a late pick. He's going to have his work cut out for him to crack a roster. But having that experience and having played with probably a lot of the guys he'll see over the course of his time in the league.
I got no problems with Sam Snow. He was on my list as a guy that could be taken in round 6, 7, or 8. Seen him play in person earlier in his career as a sophomore in that event that we used to do up in Connecticut, and was impressed. It was a goal scorer. I distinctly remember him putting his nose into a situation that he knew he was going to get blown up and taking the hits and getting the shot off and scoring. I was like, wow, that kid's pretty tough.
Fairfield, Sam Snow, headed to the Denver Outlaws, the 55th pick. Let's take a look back at Denver's picks so far in this draft. At 7, they took Brian McGill, close defenseman out of Syracuse.
Like it.
Quint likes that one, always a good thing. Davis Butts, one of the many Loyola guys drafted this evening. He was at 19, a midfielder. Landon Carr.
Love it.
Your favorite athlete or best athlete in this draft.
He's really, really good.
Of this group, if you look at it, who are some of the guys maybe beyond Carr, Butts, and McGill, if it's Law, Ferguson, some of these guys, right after we hear this pick that you think might be able to contribute?
Dante Fantoni's a little bit of a sleeper.
I
there.
agree, because I think he can play with anybody, including
if he was on a name team in the ACC,
Gotcha.
he's definitely going earlier, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Let's go to Dave Gross. The 56th pick is in. New York Lizards, part of that trade with Chesapeake.
With the 56th overall selection, the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the New York Lizards select Mark Mullen, defense, Hofstra. That ends the 7th round. We begin the 8th and final round with the Ohio Machine on the clock.
Few Hofstra guys picked here, Quint. Is that indicative of a team that is poised to do something this season? We've seen a number of Hofstra players drafted tonight.
Yeah, I think Hofstra last year, they had some serious tough luck. How many one-goal games did they lose last year? 5 or 6? Soroketti comes back. Seth Tierney's been building slowly, and I think he likes his team this year.
Let's take a look back at round 3 of tonight's draft. Some of the players that were selected. Obviously, those first 3 rounds are always where you see some of the top talent picked. And before we break this down, let's take the next pick. It's the first pick of the 8th round, the 57th pick to the Ohio Machine, to the podium.
With the 57th overall selection, the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Ohio Machine select Kevin Mack, midfield, Ohio State. The Hamilton Nationals are on the clock.
Ohio
Defensive
Machine,
midfielder.
Yeah, and they select their 3rd Ohio State Buckeye, keeping it local. Let's go back to this round 3 breakdown. Quint, John Rannigan, Casey Carroll, Davis Butts. Who in this group do you see having maybe a breakout or
The
a
3
productive
guys
year?
I like the best are Casey Carroll, first-team All-American back in 2007 for Duke, Army Ranger. Garrett Thule, you've seen him in the Patriot League playing for Army, 39 goals last year, 122 on his career. He is a beast with a capital B. And then Landon Carr, 6'2", 200-pound gazelle, never gets beat in his cover game and scored in 6 consecutive games last year. Those are 3 that stand out to me in round 3.
Lee Coppersmith continues to be the one that I'm excited to watch him play because seeing Hopkins a lot. We live in Baltimore. They're on TV all the time. He's a player that has so much athleticism. I think he could translate well. Let's head to the podium. Commissioner Dave Gross, he has the 58th pick. It's the 11th pick for the Hamilton Nationals.
With the 58th overall selection, the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Hamilton Nationals select Nick Doherty, attack Villanova. The Charlotte Hounds are on the clock.
Going back to Coppersmith, 15 goals last year, no assists. As a sophomore, 9 goals, no assists.
Why isn't he getting
for
assists?
the amount of shifts that he plays, it's almost physically impossible not to get assists. I mean, how's that possible?
It's pretty surprising. I mean,
for the amount of time that the ball's in his stick and he's dodging to the goal, 5 times a game, 10 times a game, twice a quarter.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think his shooting percentage is actually pretty good, though.
No, he doesn't waste shots.
That's what I mean. He's
I've never
productive.
seen him take a step down shot. How about that? Every single shot he's ever taken is on the run on a dodge, a split dodge right or a split dodge left. I've never seen somebody else dodge, him flash a stick, catch, hop, step, and shoot. So you talk about a one-dimensional game. He's a stone-cold alley dodger, and I've never seen him do anything else.
Should be an interesting season to see what Coppersmith can do this year, because Greeley's coming off the knee. Where does he fit in? Let's head to the
they got
podium.
a talented attack.
They do?
He's just an interesting study.
Let's head to the podium for the 59th pick, the Charlotte Hounds.
With the 59th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Draft, the Charlotte Hounds select Kyle Feeney, goaltender Bucknell. The Rochester Rattlers are on the clock.
Not many goalies selected tonight, Quinn. And Kyle Feeney, when you were sending out your notes to our production crew, was a guy that you said stepped up in big games. You had some high praise for him.
Yeah, and Charlotte's in a situation they have Mark Manos,
Gittleman,
Matt Madelon. Their starter is Adam Gittleman. I thought I had a backup goalie as a potential, and here they get a good one. A nice, tall, good save percentage. Bucknell plays a funky style of defense. You see the goals against and how well Bucknell, with their riding game, they're able to really cause team the 10-man. They're able to cause team problems. Routinely under 8 goals a game. He's played in a lot of close games. Bucknell's played in more overtime games than any team in the country in the last 2 years.
Some of the young fans, maybe
Past
future MLL
it's 11:06.
stars.
Does
Past
anyone
my
have
bedtime.
Does anyone have a bedtime?
Hey, it's the US Lacrosse Convention. Anything goes, right? Someone's just going to fall asleep right here. But quickly, and you're a former goalie, why do you think, was this just a weak goalie class? Why not a lot of goalies selected tonight?
Yeah, no, it's not a strong class. Pierce Bassett's still out on the table.
Wow, that's a good point. I didn't even think of Pierce Bassett.
We saw John Kemp
All-American. Why do you
Kemp.
think Pierce Bassett hasn't been picked?
Pierce Bassett hit a little slump late in the year last year. You know, his numbers plummeted pretty good. Jeff Lohman out of St. John's, 56%. He's still on the board as well.
Next pick is in. It's the 60th pick to the Rochester Rattlers. Into the podium, Dave Gross.
With the 60th overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Rochester Rattlers select Zach Palmer, attack Johns Hopkins. The New York Lizards are on the clock.
It's not Pierce Bassett, but it is one of his teammates at Johns Hopkins, Zach Palmer, the Canadian. Very nifty around the cage, can't really create his own shot, but he could be a finisher in this league for sure, I would think.
I was really surprised when I called up his points from last year, and 53 points is really good. And, you know,
at times he was all they had at attack.
Yeah,
Bowling was banged
I thought he had a great
Stanwyck
year.
was
I can't believe he dropped to 60th. To me, Palmer was a guy I thought would go in round 4 or 5, somewhere in the high 20s, low 30s. I think you get him on sale at 60. This is a good draft
I think
pick.
it's a value pick, too, because he could play well with Crotty.
Oh, my gosh.
If you think
if
about
you
that.
put guys, he's never had a feeding attackman at Johns Hopkins really to set him up.
That's a good point.
And his game's going to be wing, off-ball, crease, slot area. He moves well without it. He can finish in transition. He's got all the tricks, This is a great fit, as you said, for Ned. Ned Crotty will love feeding him.
Rochester making a late push here.
Zach
Palmer,
that's
the 60th
a great deal
pick.
at 60.
Got Rannigan, his teammate at Johns Hopkins, at 17.
Robert Church from Drexel, is he still on the board? He has not been picked, correct? Jeff Tundo of Stony Brook, I don't think he's been picked.
Church has not been picked.
Greg
Tundo.
DeLuca, defensive midfielder from Duke.
And you brought up Pierce Bassett. I mean,
David
I agree.
DiMaria from Lehigh, still on the board? Oh, he was picked, I'm sorry. Mike Bronzino, defense Cornell. Jeff Recaro, Princeton attack. Dave Hamlin, defense from Syracuse. These are some guys I think can get picked. Sean O'Sullivan, midi from Loyola. Quinn Cully, really strong defensive midfielder from Notre Dame. Connor English, Cornell. Curtis Holmes, Jason Ganos, Jake Hayes, Robert Morris, attack. Tucker Shanley from Princeton. I didn't realize how many goals Tucker had last year. I think he hit the 20-goal mark.
A lot of talent still out there. Let's see what New York does at the 61st pick. To the podium.
With the 61st overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the New York Lizards select Jeff Tundo, midfield, Stony Brook. The Boston Cannons are on the clock.
Local guy, Quint, you've been talking about all night. What can he bring to a team that's already got a bunch of attackmen?
Tundo's pretty good. He's strong. He's kind of a bull dodger. Good totals. Look at the assist totals. That's a lot. 28 assists. Formerly with Ohio State, now with Stony Brook. Good totals. And like Palmer, this is a deal on a guy I thought would definitely go earlier.
But doesn't it, again, kind of beg the question, what do they do with all these attackmen?
Lefty, topside, bull dodger. It was suited to play midfield at the pro level. From Orchard Park High School out in Western New York. At Ohio State, scored 23 goals last year with big assists. 28 assists is really good for a ball handling, a dodger who's leaning in. How does his 28 assists compare to Lee Coppersmith, who went 22 overall for Boston? How many more is 28 than 0?
If you carry the 4, I'm going to ask Dave Gross. He's at the podium. Let's hear what he thinks.
With the 62nd overall selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Boston Cannons select Quinn Cully, midfield, Notre Dame. The Denver Outlaws are on the clock.
He's rallying late,
We are
folks.
heating up in the final round. We were
rallying
good
late.
round 1. We were horrible round 2 through 7, and we're on fire in round 8.
Tell us about Quinn Cully.
Quinn Cully has danced every dance for Notre Dame. I think he's got over 45 games played. I feel like I've been calling his name out since I got out of college. Rock solid defensive midfielder who will cross-check you and push you down the alley. He's a really good defender. He understands team defense. Great student athlete, great kid from a proven program. I like this pick a lot.
You mentioned proven program, and you do a lot of Notre Dame games, and from the periphery watching, it seems like they're a talented team, but you don't know a lot of the guys because of their style offensively, grinded out.
Gears, exactly.
Yeah, does that mean that these players can't be successful at the league? Because we talked about Notre Dame doesn't really have a laundry list of all-stars in the MLL. David Earle's probably, at the moment, the best one.
Yeah, Scotty Rogers struggled last year in the goal, only 40%. No, Quinn Cully's good, and he, you talked to Jerry Byrne, their defensive coordinator, about him. This is a guy they really have to help, and within that system, and I think Quinn Cully's a good enough athlete to play a Major League Lacrosse. So everything's on sale here in round 8. These guys are doing a great job.
It's wholesale time. 63. The pick is in. The Denver Outlaws.
Our last pick.
With the 63rd overall selection in the 2013 MLL Draft, the Denver Outlaws select Dylan Ayers, defense, St. John's. The Rochester Rattlers are on the clock.
I'm so confused about the trade for Jay Card. Rochester gets a pick for that. Chesapeake receives Jay Card.
Rochester will have Mr. Irrelevant on their team. And always important to note, Steven Berger, all-star, had a breakout year.
If I can pick this right, what do I get? How about Dave Hamlin from Syracuse?
We need to think of something special because it's been an up-and-down evening for Quinn.
I'm going to go Dave Hamlin.
You get a bonus.
For double, triple bonus points here.
Bonus game check here. Dave Hamlin. Let me get that down here.
It was fun. A couple announcements today. Championship weekend, PPL Park in Chester, PA, right outside.
You've done games there.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I've been there just to
nice
see an
area
MLS
for tailgating.
game.
August 24th, 25th championship. All-star game in Charlotte, July 13th.
American Legion Field. Have you done a game? You probably haven't done a game down there yet.
I've seen a lot of TV.
It's awesome.
There's some key dates. TV info, CBS has got 20 games this summer, including a semifinal. ESPN has 6, 1 semi and 1 final. And it's likely that you'll see 14 or so right here on YouTube, right?
Pretty cool. This is where we're going right now. YouTube, it's happening. Well,
from the Sugar Bowl to YouTube, there's not many people who can say that.
Let's head to the podium for Mr. Irrelevant, the 64th pick and final pick of the 2013 Collegiate Draft, the Rochester Rattlers.
With the 64th and final selection in the 2013 MLL Collegiate Draft, the Rochester Rattlers select Marshall Johnson, midfield, Fairfield. This concludes the college draft for 2013. Thank you all for coming tonight. We really appreciate the support. We'll see everybody on the field starting April 27th. Have a great night.
Well, there goes your double, triple bonus. It's not Louisville. It's not Florida. It's not the Superdome.
Marshall Johnson.
But it is the 2013 MLL Draft.
That's
Quint,
your trivia question, Marshall Johnson.
quick thought. What do you think of this draft? Some of the decisions. You don't have to give us a full winners and losers, but what jumps out to you when you look at just all the players and what teams did today?
The big storyline to me is the amount of players from Loyola and Maryland who were taken in the top, 25 or 30. I believe Maryland sent 4 or 5, and Loyola sent 4 or 5 as well.
Sounds right.
That's a big storyline. Will those teams dominate on the field this spring? We'll see. I thought New York improved their team with some of the trades and the acquisitions. Not as much their draft, but what they were able to do away from the draft, bringing in Mark Matthews and the other trade they made earlier, which is an absolute steal.
David Earl and Waldeck.
For them to get David Earl
the
and
5th
Steve
overall
Waldeck
pick.
for one pick of a college draft doesn't seem to make very much sense from Hamilton's standpoint. So I think New York was a big winner, and I kind of like Boston's draft. I thought Boston has struggled in the draft, haven't really picked up some players. I think they have got 2 or 3 starters, and then Ohio, massive improvements. You got Baum, Schuss, Chase Carrero. You got a goalie. You're all of a sudden a real squad in this league after only winning 2 games last year.
Well, it's always exciting. Obviously, a lot's going to happen during this college season that may change things, but at the moment we can see a strong nucleus of young talent. It's been fun, Quint. Enjoyed it. Remember, first game, April 27th. We'll see you then. Thanks for joining us on Major League Lacrosse on YouTube. Have a great night.